4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We're rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Got Stuart Kovacs and Moist Mike with me. Coming up at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific, we react to Steve Wilks getting fired by the San Francisco 49ers yesterday, and also all the antics and shenanigans from Draymond Green with they host the 95-7 The Game in San Francisco, Bonta Hill. And coming up momentarily, we should be joined by the legendary defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, a four-time Super Bowl champion in Spags, in Steve Spagnuolo. I kind of feel like this is starting to become a yearly tradition where Spags wins the Super Bowl, the defense plays their ass off, they kick ass, they take names, and then momentarily after winning that Super Bowl, he's always benevolent with us to join us on the show. So looking forward to that conversation with Steve Spagnuolo, which should be happening momentarily. I see Samter is busy working the phones. We're having a little Zoom issue in the connection and getting Spags up, but the wait will be worth it because, man, what a career Steve Spagnuolo has had when you already knew what he accomplished with the New York Giants, winning a Super Bowl and being a part of that team that upset the Patriots and prevented them from perfection, and then being out of the league for a year and landing with an old friend in Andy Reid in Kansas City. And now he has been one of the focal points of this Chiefs dynasty. Like when you look at the Chiefs, you think of Mahomes, you think of Kelsey, you think of Andy Reid, you think of Chris Jones, and then you think of Steve Spagnuolo as well. Like those are the first five guys that you think of that we see the most and hear the most out of with this Chiefs dynasty. And don't get me wrong, like the owner of the team is very important in Clark Hunt. The general manager in Brett Veach is very important as well. But to see what Spags' defense has done this year, it has been really impressive. And this is a defense where it's tough to get any shine their way because of, obviously, when you have Mahomes and Kelsey, that's where most of the attention and Andy Reid is going to go because you have one of the greatest coaches of all time, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and one of the greatest tight ends of all time. But then in another breath, you have to acknowledge that Steve Spagnuolo is one of the greatest defensive coordinators to ever participate in the NFL. And you have people like Kay Adams, Eric Eager, and yours truly, who are now singing the praises of Spags, where it's not only, wow, what a great job Spags did up against the 49ers, what a great job Spags did up against the Baltimore Ravens, but it has turned into that when you win 4 Super Bowls and you are a defensive coordinator, you don't need to just be a head coach from a coaching side, in my opinion, to get in the Hall of Fame. And the goal of the Hall of Fame is to tell the history of the sport. And how can you tell the history of a sport and the greatness of the sport, and even though Spags didn't have success as the head coach of the Rams, without mentioning and without having a bust in Canton, Ohio for Steve Spagnuolo? And I know, right, assistant coaches have never got into the Hall of Fame where they're only known for assistant coaches, but Spags just signed an extension, and let's say that his final job is with the Chiefs, and this is his last run in the NFL. Who knows how many more championships the Chiefs are going to win? And with each championship, you climb rankings and you improve the legacy of already phenomenal legacies. Like, look at Mahomes. Mahomes is already moving up the all-time great quarterback list where it feels like he's already in the top 3. Travis Kelce is a top 5 tight end of all time. Andy Reid, I don't know where you rank him, but he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. And when you go through it and when you evaluate the other people as well, there's no doubt about it that Steve Spagnuolo is one of the greatest defensive coordinators and one of the greatest defensive minds that we've ever seen. And look at some of the opponents that he's had to play, whether it was Brady or the great offensive mind of Kyle Shanahan, and you see the results that have unfolded. They are just absolutely spectacular. So now we are in a moment of history where you see this Chiefs dynasty and you know what this Chiefs dynasty has done, where now you're going to just see these guys just catapult right up the all-time list. And I don't think a guy like Spags should be forgotten. And clearly he made an enormous impact this year with what he's been able to do with the Kansas City Chiefs and, quite frankly, what he's been able to do in all three of these Super Bowl runs. And it takes a team to win. And sometimes when you have an all-time great quarterback, it's tough to get that great defense, but that's what the Chiefs have been able to do. And now joining us is one of the legendary defensive coordinators in the history of the NFL. He is now a 4-time Super Bowl champion. And once again, he is Steve Spagnuolo, kind enough to join us after another world championship on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Spags, always appreciate the time. Congratulations to you and your family. And how you doing?
I'm doing great, Zach. I apologize. I'm not a technology guy, and I couldn't figure out the audio here. I can see you, though, so I'm waving to you, just so you know. I see the Kansas City Chiefs hat in the background, and great to be on with you.
Well, that's awesome, and I think we'll give you a pass, Coach. You're an old school coach. We know what you're doing with the defense. If you can't figure out the Zoom, I guess we'll get that squared away for the next parade for Kansas City, right?
Give me a pass on the not figuring out the Zoom. I appreciate that.
I hate to start it off this way, but obviously yesterday turned from a great day into a scary day. How did you kind of process everything that happened at the parade, which was definitely a somber moment after celebrating a world championship?
Yeah, Zach, I'm glad you brought it up here at the beginning, because obviously prayers go out to the lives lost, one that we're aware of, and then obviously the injuries and the children involved, and just a sad, sad thing to have happen in a really glorious celebration. I mean, we're there for the people, for our great fans, and then to have it end that way was tough. I hope it doesn't take away from the fact that, our guys kind of accomplished something really great. But because this is real world stuff, I think we should acknowledge the prayers that go out to those people.
Yeah, it was just absolutely surreal, and it was crazy how quickly it happened. We all saw Travis Kelce being a bit intoxicated and singing yesterday. I saw Willie Gay was lying in the streets with the shoes off and a bottle of Henny in his hands, and the next thing you know, you see just a frantic scene. When did you kind of realize that, hey, this is something serious and something wrong was going on? Because it just seemed like it happened at a snap of a finger.
Yeah, well, it felt like we were kind of winding down with the stage portion of it, and we were kind of getting off. And then they said everybody's got to get out of here quickly. So we weren't really sure what was going on. As you can imagine, in those situations, there's a lot of unknown, and we really didn't hear anything. But everybody was concerned because of what has happened in the past in this country. So they kind of scudded us through, and there was a kind of a tense moment there where we were trying to get to the buses, and then people couldn't find that. The hardest and the most really the most scariest thing about it was when you couldn't find a family member, and you knew possibly was something was going on outside of the building we were in. That got concerning, and you could see it in the faces of people. So I thought the police department in Kansas City and all those policemen that were involved did a tremendous job. The people that responded, I think a lot of credit goes out to them, and the people that actually put these events on, I think did a tremendous job.
Now, you can't say it any better. Steve Spagnuolo is here with us. I remember not that long ago, you, me, and the cuz, Anthony Gargano, were hanging out at a Super Bowl, and the next thing we know, we already knew you were a great defensive coordinator with the championship, even though you beat my Patriots in that Super Bowl, but then you get reunited with Andy Reid, and now you've won 3 more Super Bowls. What is this chapter for you? Congratulations on the new extension, by the way. What has it meant to you when you've been able to process it for a bit?
Well, first of all, Zach, I mean, you know me. I give all the glory to God, and I'm blessed and so very fortunate that I was able to come here because of a relationship that I had with Andy, obviously, prior, and him having the confidence in bringing me here meant a great deal. And listen, since the day I've gotten here or the day he decided to bring me here, all my goal has been is to make him look right in his decision. And you never want to let Andy Reid down. I think every guy that plays for him or coaches for him says that, and it's the truth. I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to uphold our part of the bargain. And being around him, being with him, working for him, the confidence he shows in us as coaches and players goes beyond even talking about. He's unique. He's a Hall of Famer. I'm glad I've had the chance to work with him. I'm glad I'm going to get a chance to continue to work with him.
And I'm looking back at some of our old text messages from earlier in the year, Spags, and I'll take you back to Friday, September 22nd, where I texted you and I said, you got those guys humming this year. Defense looks really good, not getting enough praise. And you said, we're okay with no praise. Our guys are all in and just want to help the team win. Got to do it again. I'm just wondering, because it was evident to me how special your defense could be. When did you start to sense this season that you guys not only had a good defense, but a great defense?
Well, it's a great question, Zach. And, you go through the season. I'd have to go back on the Rolodex on my mind to remember that. But I can say this. There was a concern when Nick Bolton got hurt somewhere, I don't know, game 3, 4, 5, whatever it was. And when Drew Tranquil stepped in there, and we really didn't feel like we skipped a beat because he was so good at getting in there in the middle and control. When you lose the quarterback of your defense, like when you're losing the quarterback on offense, sometimes there's a step backwards. But that didn't happen to us. They rallied around Drew, and it just kind of showed me what the other 10 were like and how they functioned as a unit, and every guy kind of bought in. That was probably it for me when we kept a high level of defense, even though the guy in the middle was on the sideline when Nick got hurt.
It's kind of crazy because you have so many big-name players, so sometimes people get lost in the shuffle. But what Nick Bolton has been able to do the last 2 Super Bowls has just been sensational. And also, I know you're close with Mike Pennell, and I want to bring him up as well. Man, what an unsung hero he was on Super Bowl Sunday.
And before I got on here, Zach, I was watching the second half for the third time or whatever. I've watched it on the TV copies, but I'm sitting here doing the coach's copy now, and you're right about Mike. There were some key downs in there where he just physically overwhelmed the guy that was blocking, made key stops for us, and we had so many guys do that.
He put Trent Williams on his ass, Coach. I've never seen someone do that.
No, that's a good point, Zach, and it's all about leverage and how we played that day. And going back to Nick, I mean, there was a key moment in that game. You guys will remember it. That 3rd and 4 where we got him to kick the field goal was huge for us. And the clock was winding down. They decided to take it to 2 minutes. We had called a particular defense to defend that 3rd and 4, but when they let it get down to 2 minutes, I looked at my sheet and I said, this is like a 4th down. I looked at my 4th down calls, and I got on the headset with Nick. Now he can't respond to me, right? I'm just looking out on the field, and I was looking for his reaction. I said, Nick, what do you think about this call? And he was bobbing his head, and he was all for it. So I knew when Nick Bolton said, yeah, that's the one I want, I knew that was the one to go to. And, Trent came through, knocked the ball down, and it was a key stop. So getting back to Nick, that's him. I mean, having the confidence in him, all the other guys feel the same way. He gets everybody lined up, and then he goes and plays really good football.
And I know you just talked about the McDuffie play. Then how about in overtime? Because they had some guys open, but Planet players, you know this, Coach, they make Planet plays. And my, oh my, Chris Jones stepped up in the biggest moment.
Yeah, I just watched it not 10 minutes ago before getting on here. And I'm not so sure that maybe their offensive line didn't make a mistake. I mean, you'd have to ask the 49ers. But Chris obviously has a unique feel and skill for when the quarterback's going to throw that football. And they give him a little bit of lane, and he can accelerate. And he made him throw it a little bit quicker than I think they wanted to. Unfortunately for us, the ball went incomplete.
Talking to Steve Spagnuolo right now, 4-time defensive coordinator as a Super Bowl champion. I got to ask you about overtime. It was adamant from your side that you guys wanted the ball second and your defense was on the field first. When you heard that the 49ers won the toss and they took the ball, were you surprised by that decision with these new rules?
I guess I was, Zach, but I will tell you this. From a defensive standpoint, you know you're going to have to go out at some point, like the way the rules are now. You know, it used to be you waited for that coin flip and hope we won the coin toss and got the ball, right? It's not like that anymore. So we were just preparing for a series of defense. So the difference for us would be if we go out first because, 49ers got the ball, there's a chance it's a 3-down situation and you get them to punt. If you go out second and we have put some points on the board, then it's a 4-down experience. So we were just waiting to see what it was going to be for us. It ended up us going out first. And, the play that kind of sticks out to me, I wish that we had back or somehow it, been successful. It was a 3rd and 13. We got the penalty on Trent. They flagged him and that gives them a first down. They end up kicking a field goal. But all in all, we know who we have as our quarterback. So we felt like, I think in our minds, we don't want to give up field goals, but if we could hold them to a field goal, we know Patrick's got a chance.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. When they kicked the field goal, I think everyone thought Mahomes was marching right down the field. When you saw the final play where he finds McCole and you guys are world champs and it's a walk-off, just how did you kind of process that, relive that for me, Spags?
You know what, Zach? I can relive it exactly the way it happened. I mean, I before that play happened, I noticed that Drew Tranquill was to my right. And I didn't know that was going to be the touchdown scoring play, but I just had that in my mind. And Drew is a guy that did not experience a Super Bowl yet. And I'm always really pulling and want to win for the guys that haven't felt it. And so the minute McCole scored, I grabbed Drew, who had his head buried on the ground because he was so happy. And I just told him how happy I was for him since he had not felt this before, and certainly happy for everybody, but especially those guys. And we were so fortunate to get Drew. He hadn't won a playoff game in his career, and here he was now a Super Bowl champ, which I was really, really happy for.
So I know that Chris Jones said yesterday that he's not going anywhere. I know that he needs a new contract, and that was a storyline even before the season started. Inevitable that they'll get this thing done in Kansas City, in your opinion?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, we got all kinds of confidence in Brett Veach and his crew, and I know Chris wants to be here, and we want him here. Now, there's a lot going. Every year changes, right? I mean, I shared this with other people, Zach. I'll share it with you that throughout this playoff run, I mean, right from the first game against Miami, before every game, I prayed, good Lord, give me another week with these guys, because I know. Because it's a special group, and I know it changes every year. And, hopefully Chris is with us, but I hope that I don't think there's about 10 or 11 defensive guys whose contracts are up, and I know we can't keep everybody, but I want to keep as many as we possibly can because it's unique. But I'm realistic. I know that it'll change a little bit. Hopefully Chris is not one of those, but we'll see as we go forward. It's a different kind of business in that way.
I feel like every year when we have you on after you win a Super Bowl, I make the case why you should get another opportunity to become a head coach. Have you been kind of surprised that you haven't even got another sniff at a head coaching job?
Well, I guess there's some disappointment and surprise. I would at least like to be able to talk to people and see what their thoughts are. Listen, I don't lose sleep over it. I've told you this before, Zach. But do I want it? Yeah. I mean, we're all prideful guys, right? We want to prove that the way we did things in St. Louis. I mean, we had it on the right track after that second year. We were one game away from, if we win the last game of the season, we're in the playoffs at 8-8 and play New Orleans at home. And that didn't happen. Then we ran into the lockout. So would I? Yes. But I always finish by saying this. If it never happens, I'm a blessed man. I got a great job. I work for a great organization and a great head coach, so I'd be good as well. And
here's the other thing. Your rise, we all know what you have done and what you have accomplished. You have Kay Adams, Eric Eager. I did a sports minute on it the other day. We're making the case for Spags to get in the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't think you need to be a head coach again get in the Hall of Fame with what you've done. So what does that mean when you hear those words of extolment?
Can I be honest with you, Zach? I can't even wrap my arms around that. Like, that has never been in. I haven't had the dream go that far in my head, to be honest with you. I listen, I don't even know how to comment on it. I just kind of keep coaching hard and hopefully winning games, and whatever happens after that would be great. But I do appreciate you guys even saying that. I mean, I'm humbled to even be considered in that regard. But I think it is all about players. I'm always going to go back to that, Zach. I've been blessed to be around some great assistant coaches who should get a lot more credit than they do. And then the players certainly They do it on the field.
By the way, when I was at the AFC Championship game after you guys punched another ticket to the Super Bowl, Andy revealed that your wife has been making some good desserts for the coaching staff. What's the legendary dessert, Spags?
Well, let me tell you this, though. She makes them every Friday for all the defensive guys. And, of course, that filters into the equipment room, training room, and all that. And then, we have a little award that she makes a big pasta dinner for. We'll call it the Cram Award, and the guy that gets the biggest hit gets that. But here's where I'm going. I always make sure in that dessert bunch that I pull one out, put it on the head coach's desk. So when he comes off the field on Fridays, he's got that waiting for him. So I think part of the reason I was able to be asked to come back here was because Coach Reed didn't want to miss out on that.
Well, I was going to say that's how I know Coach isn't retiring, because if he retires, he's not going to get those desserts.
There you go. Well, I know my wife would probably be sending to him in retirement, too. That's how she is. So.
Last thing I'll ask you, you know what it's like to lose a job in this league. How did you kind of react to Steve Wilks going from coaching in a Super Bowl and then shortly after that getting fired yesterday?
Shocking. Listen, I have my heart goes out to any of the coaches in this league because that they get let go. Now, we all know that that's the reality and it can happen. It's a little shocking when it happens when somebody goes that far. But listen, I've been on all ends of this thing, and I do know this. It's a forgiving profession, and Steve Wilks is a good football coach, and he'll land on his feet because he is. And sometimes, sometimes when one door closes and a window opens, and hopefully that will happen for him, and he'll get back on his feet.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part to me is that in regulation they held the great Patrick Mahomes to one touchdown drive. It's not as if the defense was the reason why they lost that Super Bowl. I thought it was their offense.
No, you're probably right about that. I mean, listen, I'm just happy that we ended up winning this thing, but I do feel, you're bringing it up, and I do feel for Steve. I don't know him that well, but for any coach that has to go through that, it's hard.
Well, Spags, hey, I always appreciate you. Once again, congratulations to you and your family, and can't thank you enough for giving us time right out of the gate today on the show.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Zach. Good luck to you, and I'm sure we'll talk again. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks so much. Steve Spagnuolo joining us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. A lot to react to from that. We'll get to it on the other side, off and running on a very busy Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. But where else? CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I think every year when you ask, how do you remember a Super Bowl, there are multiple answers. You know, some years it's a singular answer, but I think this is a Super Bowl where if I ask this question, I think you could get like 4 or 5 different answers. And the way that I process it is that, number one, it's another blown lead for Kyle Shanahan. But also, let's see how they blew that lead. Well, you look at the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs, that's the biggest reason why they won that game. Because that defense for Kansas City up against, right, the great 49ers offense, while the Chiefs offense made some mistakes, an interception and a fumble, you never had the Chiefs break. And that was an enormous part where Mahomes throws a pick, Pacheco fumbles the football. You have turnovers in a Super Bowl when you're going up against the likes of Debo and Ayuk and Purdy and McCaffrey and Kittle and even Jennings. You're thinking they're going to capitalize. But 2 turnovers and the Chiefs defense answered the bell. And they answered the bell in a big way. And I go back to the muff punt. And when it hit off a player for the 49ers, that to me was a huge point in the game because even though the next drive, the 49ers answered the bell and they came storming right back down the field and put the ball in the end zone, it just kind of further showed you more proof that it's going to take everything to knock Kansas City out of the game. Because Kansas City, for almost 3 quarters on offense, did nothing. Like, you look back and just think about it this way. If I were to tell you before the start of the Super Bowl that the great Patrick Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, would only have 1 touchdown in regulation, you would have said the Chiefs would have lost the game. How many points did the Chiefs lose by? But you look at their last 2 games, the AFC Championship game and then also the Super Bowl, the story, even though we talk about it as the greatness of Mahomes, the greatness of Andy Reid, the greatness of Travis Kelce, that's not the reason why they won those games. And when you go through other great dynasties, there are some times where the biggest people associated with the dynasty, there will be a Super Bowl or 2 that they're not the biggest reason why they won. And you look at the AFC Championship game, and you look at the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes even said it. In the second half of the AFC Championship game, he became a game manager. In the second half of that AFC Championship game, they scored 0 points on offense. But that Chiefs defense just dominated Lamar Jackson. dominated him. And then you get to the Super Bowl with Mahomes only producing 1 touchdown in regulation, and with how you had the team of the Niners just look better than the Chiefs, but it wasn't shown on the scoreboard. It was because of that defense coached up by the guy that just joined us a few moments ago in the legendary defensive coordinator of Steve Spagnuolo. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to John in Arkansas, who I always wonder if John is really from Arkansas. John, what's happening? Good afternoon, my friend John.
Guy, it's John in Arkansas.
Yeah, once again, it's one of my favorite people to talk to in this world, the great Sully, who may have been the greatest host I've ever experienced in Las Vegas. He took us to the Golden Knights game. He took us to one of the greatest restaurants I've ever been to on Wednesday. Sully was the star. I think the star of CBS Sports Radio. And I can't tell you how many times Sully was in the background of one of our interviews and didn't realize there was a camera on us, even though he streams the show every day, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. And Sully was talking to someone that was very important. Every interview I look back at, there is Sully in the background talking to star after star after star.
Buddy, this is John in Arkansas. I don't know who the Sully guy is, but he sounds like an amazing individual.
Yeah, he's actually a jerk, John.
I've never seen John from Arkansas and Sully in the same room, so maybe that's something. Zach, what's up, dude?
I'm phenomenal. I feel great. Even though I just spent a week in Vegas, I feel phenomenal, even though I'm still jet lagged, because that meal that you got us to on Wednesday night, I'm still dreaming about it. I may come visit you in Vegas in like 2 months just to go to the Italian restaurant.
Buddy, so on Saturday night, I was telling Samtha, we went back, me, the fabulous Schmoopy, B-Mac, his wife, and a couple of their friends went back to Piero's. Oh, we went back to Piero's and crushed it again. Oh, it was outstanding.
Now, did McFadden the Mooch, did he pick up the tab?
McFadden's not a mooch. McFadden knows what time it is.
No, I'm just teasing.
So,
I'm teasing.
I want to say thank you to everybody at CBS Radio for even including me into the whole thing, because for me, having you guys around in the city that I live in was an absolute joy. To be able to go to places that I love and have friends that I care about side by side with me, to me, that's what life is all about, Zach. It's nice to be able to say these things, but for me, it's beautiful and it fills my bucket when I get to experience things that I really, truly enjoy with friends that I love and I care about. So thank you for always including me.
No, well, I appreciate it. And I'll just say this. I don't want this to turn into a slobber fest, but I said this to Samter. The best parts of the trips were when we were just hanging out and having fun and enjoying ourselves. And trust me, we got to a lot of great parties. We got to see a lot of great things. But that dinner on Wednesday was so cool because we were in a back private room, and it was just EJ, Samter, myself, Perloff, a few other people as well. We were just hanging and having a good time with our guy Sully.
Buddy, that's what it's all about. And I'm now currently in Boston, so I also took the red eye. I took the red eye last night. Jet lag is real. Jet lag is real. No one cares. No one wants to hear about it. But what I want to talk about is you were just talking about the game. You were there. You got to be part of the whole situation, and it's always different when you're at the game compared to when you're watching it on TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does Zach Gelb think? Coin flip, overtime, San Fran takes the ball. Don't lie, what did you really think was going to go down? Did you know the major difference between playoff overtime?
No,
Neither did I.
Well, hold on. I knew the new rules. I did not know that the clock wasn't a factor, but I knew both teams got a possession and that they matched. It did go into sudden death. I actually did not have a problem with Shanahan taking the ball first, so I'm not going to crush him for it. The thing I do crush him for, and I've been saying it all week, and even Steve Young said it the other day on our show, is how the heck is your team not prepared and your team doesn't know the overtime rules? Like, you think of the great coaches and Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, they meticulously prepare for everything. You had 2 weeks to get your guys ready for that game. And a guy like Kyle Juszczyk, who's a smart guy that graduated from Harvard and attended Harvard, he doesn't know the new overtime rules? That's ludicrous to me. It's bad coaching.
The situation football I thought was interesting, too. And, and look, Kyle Shanahan, he's a great offensive mind, but for some reason, he always gets tight when the game's on the line.
He chokes in the big moments.
He did it when they played the first time against the Chefs. And then that third down pass play, I don't understand. Run the ball, try to take the risk. Spagnuolo, whatever. Everything can go back and forth. You can say this, you can say that. I loved being home, watching the game. For you being at the environment, you're a neutral fan. I wanted to hear your perspective because the overtime rule, I literally had to look at Swoopy. I'm like, hey, wait, what did he just say? I knew that both teams get the ball because of the whole Kansas City Buffalo,
Yeah.
I'm complaining because I don't get the ball type thing in overtime. But I didn't know the whole, like you said, the time doesn't matter. The third possession I didn't understand. I just thought it's a score, and then I didn't know it was sudden death after that. So that was a new learning experience for me, and I thought I knew football.
Well, John, Sully, whoever you are, we appreciate the time and you calling and being great all throughout the week to us in Las Vegas and giving us the red carpet treatment. Regardless of what I think, here's what I think we could all agree on now moving forward. When that happens and you get this situation unfolding now, I believe that most teams moving forward, because of the way that Andy Reid and the Chiefs approach this and what happened with Shanahan, the idea now is going to be never get to the third possession. That this is going to be first drive, you score a touchdown, all right, maybe you kick the extra point, but the second drive, if there's an opportunity to score a touchdown and go for two, you're going to go for that and go for the two instead of giving the ball back to the other team where they just need a field goal. So I guess whether you agree with it or not, I'm not crushing Shanahan for taking the ball first, but moving forward, the team that wins now in the future is going to defer, and they're basically going to say, even if we allow a touchdown, then we're going to march down the field, get a touchdown, and we're going to go for two. That's what I think we've all learned, whether you knew things or you did not. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Steve Wilks shouldn't have been fired, but who could replace him in San Francisco? I have a big name that I'm going to suggest. When we return, update time first. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. The Kansas City Police is still sorting out the details of yesterday's deadly shooting at the Chiefs parade. It said it was not related to terrorism or homegrown extremism, that it was an argument that turned violent. One person was killed, more than 20 were injured. A new leading scorer will be crowned tonight, barring something unforeseen. Iowa hosts Michigan with Caitlin Clark needing only 8 points to break Kelsey Plum's record of 3,527. Clark has been the sport's biggest attraction the last couple of years, and tickets are going for as much as $3,000 tonight. The 22-year-old has remained grounded through all the adulation, so it's no surprise to hear how unfazed she is about the big moment.
I'm not anxious about it really at all. I'm just very excited. It's going to be a special night. Honestly, we haven't really talked a lot about it as a team, or me and Coach Bluter. We never really talked about the record and what's going to happen. It's just go out there and play basketball and have fun, and this is kind of what comes along with it.
The Columbus Blue Jackets, last in the Eastern Conference, fired General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining.
3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the new Hyundai Tucson, available with complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Now it's easy to use your phone to control your Tucson. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. So yesterday, we reacted to this on the air, that Steve Wilks was fired by the San Francisco 49ers as their defensive coordinator. I said this yesterday. I'll say it again. I think Kyle Shanahan is scapegoating Steve Wilks for the Super Bowl loss. That's what I just think it is. There's no bigger conversation about this. I know earlier in the season, the defense did not perform well. I know in the postseason, there were flaws with the defense. But in the Super Bowl, if you are going to get rid of Steve Wilks when he holds Patrick Mahomes in regulation to one touchdown, that just doesn't sit well with me. They held Mahomes in regulation to under 20 points. And the only touchdown they allowed was because of a special teams blunder. It was directly correlated to that ball bouncing off a 49ers player, McLeod not being able to recover it, and then the next play, boom, they hit MVS and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So the fact that Steve Wilks got fired is ridiculous. But Kyle Shanahan has every right to make that decision as the head coach of the football team. But the problem with Kyle Shanahan is I don't think Kyle Shanahan cares about public perception, but he doesn't look good here. Because you think about from when the 49ers lost the Super Bowl, Shanahan has downplayed his players not knowing the overtime rules. He has also gone out of his way to say that they know how to win big games. And now you're firing a defensive coordinator who, even if everything wasn't perfect, you're more of the reason, Kyle Shanahan I'm talking about, why they lost the Super Bowl compared to Steve Wilks. And I know what Nick Bosa said, and I know that Shanahan had to use a timeout in the overtime of a Super Bowl, but still, you can't take those timeouts home with you. And also, you being a brainiac offensive mind and a wizard who is overrated. Shanahan is overrated. This is not me saying Shanahan sucks, Shanahan's awful. He's a top 5 head coach in the league. But you have been right there, and no one wants to criticize this guy? People still believe now that Shanahan's going to break through. Maybe he does one day. But outside of the overtime decision, this guy hasn't received any criticism. Don't get me wrong. He's been blasted for the overtime decision. But I'm not even blasting him for the overtime decision. I'm blasting him for his guys not knowing the rules and also his offense practically being a no-show for 60 minutes in a Super Bowl. Think about that. Has anyone this week really done a full dive on the ineptitude of that offense? We spent a week crushing Lamar Jackson and crushing Monken for not being ready. We spent a whole week talking about them and their offensive shortcomings. The only thing that people are crushing Shanahan on is taking the ball first. How about we discuss why that offense wasn't able to put the game away? And sure, you got to credit Spags. Sure, you got to credit the defense. You got to credit McDuffie. You got to credit guys like Chris Jones as well. But let's also look at this offense with the players that you have. You can't afford in the biggest game of the year for Ayuk to basically be a non-factor, Kittle to be a non-factor, and Samuel to be a non-factor. You look at all the players you have, it's inconceivable to me how all those guys didn't show up. And I remember, I'll just use a hockey analogy here. The Rangers last year, the New York Rangers, they put together a really well-rounded team with big superstars like Mika Zibanejad. You had Patrick Kane, Tarasenko, Panarin, Trocheck. That's a well-rounded team. And all those guys, pretty much, outside of Kreider, didn't show up in that postseason series. So in the biggest game of the year, how do you have this many great players from Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league, Samuel, one of the more versatile players in the league. You have McCaffrey, who's a stud. You have Ayuk, who was a 1,400-yard receiver this year. How do 3 of those guys not show up? And Purdy was fine in the game. He was fine. He was good. McCaffrey, outside of the fumble, led the team in rushing, led the team in receiving. But to have the brainiac and the offensive wizardry of Kyle Shanahan not be able to get anything out of Samuel, Kittle, or Ayuk, that's mystifying. So I do think it's weak. I think it's gutless. And I think it's a lack of accountability since losing another Super Bowl and blowing another Super Bowl league stemming from Kyle Shanahan. Now, the question is, where do you go next? I know that Mike Zimmer, former head coach, he got the job in Dallas. Is Ron Rivera going to be in play for San Francisco? I guess. But I think there's an enormous fish out there. And for any other team, I would probably say no shot. I still don't think it's likely that he's going to wind up because I do believe that it's beneath him to take a defensive coordinating job. But I remember after Shanahan choked Super Bowl 51 as the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons, shortly after that Super Bowl, Bill Belichick reached out to Kyle Shanahan, and the two have become extremely close. Bare minimum, after getting rid of Steve Wilks, which is the wrong decision and completely unfair, Kyle Shanahan has to pick up the phone and see if Mr. Mumbles in Bill Belichick is at least interested in the defensive coordinating position. And in all likelihood, Belichick will say, Kyle, I like you. I consider you a good friend and a good young coach, but I'm not going to be the DC of the 49ers. It's just not going to happen. But you at least have to hear that no. Because guys are addicted to coaching. When Larry Brown once got fired, he was coaching like a middle school youth league team. I'm not asking Belichick to coach some middle school team. This is still being a defensive coordinator in the NFL for one of the better teams in the league. You at least have to make that phone call. And I understand from Shanahan's side of things where people are starting to turn on Shanahan, even though he's a top 5 coach, definitely a top 10 coach in the league. You bring in Belichick and you fail to get it done in the big moment, then guess what? A year from now, everyone's praising Bill Belichick and they're saying, oh, Belichick should take over for Shanahan. But I have to think that, if you just swapped out Shanahan for Belichick, Belichick's not blowing that lead up against Andy Reid. I don't think he would, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you get rid of Wilks, which you did, you got to at least make that phone call to Bill Belichick and make him say no. And in all likelihood, he will, but you can't leave that stone unturned, kind of like what you did in your preparation for overtime in the Super Bowl. You have to cross all your T's and dot all your I's. Now, maybe you reach out to Mike Vrabel too, but I would assume that Belichick will say no because they're getting ready for their next head coaching jobs next year. But you at least have to hear that word no instead of just assuming that it's going to be a no. So that becomes a fascinating offseason storyline. And I'm sure that we'll get that answer sooner rather than later. I got to imagine that's coming in the next 2-3 weeks where we find out who will replace Steve Wilks as the next DC of the San Francisco 49ers. But how long will this window be open for? You keep on getting close. When you keep on getting close, eventually you bottom out. No one's going to predict that the Niners will bottom out next year, but it's not crazy to say because there's a mental and physical grind when you keep on getting so close, when you keep on getting to the Final Four, but yet so far. Should Belichick be the next DC of the 49ers? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I got 5 coaches that are under the most pressure in the NFL for next season. We discuss when we return on the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program, Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. If you missed it earlier, the defensive wizard of the Kansas City Chiefs and one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time, Steve Spagnuolo, joins us exclusively right on the show. About 20 minutes, I would say, right at the top of the show at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. If you missed any of that, you could use the Odyssey app and use the rewind function. It's up for 24 hours. You could also always see the archive of our show each and every day, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. And you could always go to my Twitter page, at Zach Gelb, or on Instagram. Make sure you follow along. And we have the link for every segment in our bio, and you could find our podcast page as well. And when you're there, if you want, you could like it, you could subscribe, and you could rate it. Just make sure when you rate it, you rate positive things, because I only want positive things. I'm Mr. Positive these days at CBS Sports Radio, and I expect a nice positive review from Largent Parks, who could be the next program director here of CBS Sports Radio, in the YouTube chat. He is not happy with me because I think Kyle Shanahan choked the Super Bowl, which, let's just be real, he did. He choked another Super Bowl. Now, when you say that, that's not not giving credit to Kansas City. I gave an abundant amount of credit to the Chiefs. From Mahomes finding a way to get the ball in the end zone after the 49ers only got a field goal. I have also given Steve Spagnuolo a ton of credit, Andy Reid a ton of credit, and a bunch of players on their defense. So you could say that a team choked and it doesn't take away from the other team. Like, for example, the Atlanta Falcons choked the Super Bowl up against the Patriots. It doesn't mean that you can't also say, look at the brilliance of Dante Hightower, Tom Brady, and Julian Edelman. So both can be true. You can give credit to the Chiefs and also acknowledge that the 49ers choked the Super Bowl. And I was reading to you that message that one guy from Wichita sent out where he called me like a clown and he wasn't expecting me to respond because I said that Shanahan was embarrassing in the Super Bowl. I ended up responding to it. He's like, I take the clown part back. I listen to the show every day. I always love those encounters. By the way, tonight I'm going to the Ranger game at Madison Square Garden with a listener. I'm very excited to see how that's going to go. I'm looking to have a good time at the game tonight with Billy, who reached out to me on my birthday a year ago and said he wanted to take me to a Ranger game this year.
I think that going to see a game with Billy might be a little bit different of an experience as going to a Vegas Knights game with Sully.
I would say so. just a little bit. Since Sully is like the king of Vegas. And also, one of the guys that founded Metallica, who I've now started to have a little back and forth with on social media, really nice guy. He was sitting next to me at the game, which was wild. Brian Slagle, very nice guy. And not only that, his buddy that he brought to the game with, he had incredible stories. He ran the Vegas strip club scene for 30 years. And then when the pandemic happened, he kind of got out of that. But he told me since getting out of the strip club scene, he has lost 100 pounds. And the guy is in phenomenal shape. But he was showing me some old pictures of him at the game, and it kind of makes sense when you're running the strip club scene. You're probably drinking and eating all different kinds of things each and every night.
I will say this. When I lived in Boston, there were a couple strip clubs not far from where I lived, and they did...
Moist Mike was at the strip clubs?
Not for the reasons you thought. They did the most amazing lunch buffets.
Yeah.
Like their lunch meals, and they had to have good food to get people in the door to watch what they were doing. But I would have my back turned to the stage. I'd just be sitting there eating and hanging out with my friends. And there was like the best food for the most amazing price. They had steak and seafood.
Were you single then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
you weren't just there.
This was like 20-something years ago. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I wasn't there for that. I was there for the food. And like, every now and again you turn around and you kind of take a glance, and then you'd not even. I'd sit in the back with my back turned. I wasn't there for that. I was there for the food.
Well,
so I understand why he gained weight in the industry.
One of my favorite moments from the pandemic was when Lou Will left the bubble and went to Magic City, and everyone was saying, "Yeah, okay, you're there for those lemon pepper wings, sure. You were also there for the legs and the thighs as well. Like, let's be real." And it turns out that Magic City has like some of the best wings ever, and people that know Magic City, and I do not, I've just heard of it. I've never been there. I was in Atlanta once, and I was not at Magic City. Next time I'm there, I got to go try the lemon pepper Lou wings, definitely. And when Shannon Sharp called him lemon pepper Lou, that was amazing. But everyone that has gone to that establishment, that gentleman's club, let's be proper and correct here, they all have endorsed those wings as well. So strip clubs, it makes sense because you have people that are just there to watch, and some people are cheap where they'll just throw a few singles or they won't buy a lap dance or anything like that. So when you sit down and you just basically gorge people with food, maybe they're like, okay, I may as well go through some of the other services.
And listen, you just have to entice people to have a reason to go there in the afternoon, like maybe on a lunch break from work or whatever else, where like, people think of going to the strip clubs at night to like have a fun time and unwind. But if you think of it in a different way, like, hey, I have an hour for lunch. This place has great food. There happen to be girls dancing on a pole behind me, but I don't have to worry about that. I'm just here for good food.
The strip club location, by the way, I always find fascinating because they're usually kind of hidden. Sometimes when you get in a bigger city, they are not hidden. But when I was growing up, as a kid in high school, there was always a club that we didn't know like really what it was at first. And then when you get older, you realize what it was. But there was a club adjacent to the local Applebee's on Long Island in Comac, New York. So think about it. You had a bunch of kids every Friday night, because you know when like you're Friday in middle school or high school, you want to go to like the movies or you want to go to an Applebee's and just have some fun. And there's only so many things you could do until you get your driver's license. So we used to go to Applebee's a lot. And you think about it, you have all these kids half off apps at Applebee's. And little did we know there was a gentleman's club about 10 feet from the Applebee's. And when you got a little bit older, you realize that was a gentleman's club. And it was like, why is so-and-so's father insisting on taking us to Applebee's and then staying in the parking lot while everyone else is at Applebee's? Because so-and-so's father probably went to the local strippy. That's what probably happened.
I mean, I'll be honest. Applebee's 2 for appetizers is a pretty sweet deal, so I wouldn't be complaining too much myself.
Well, they probably have a 2 for deal at the strip club as well.
A different type of 2 for deal.
Yeah. All righty, so Kyle Shanahan is under an immense amount of pressure entering this season. Let me ask you guys this. Do you think Shanahan entering next season is at all at any danger of getting fired? Like, can you see any way where after next season, Kyle Shanahan gets fired as the head football coach of the San Francisco 49ers? Stu gave me the biggest reaction, where I think there's an immediate no, I could tell. Stu is at least pondering it. And quite frankly, since Samter's a Fugazi Chiefs fan now, I think Stu is the expert on this show of coaches getting fired because it feels like his team has a coach get fired every 2 years. So what's your thoughts on Shanahan?
I mean, I would say it's unlikely, but the Rams, I feel like, are at least a little more, like, they're not a terrible team to see. Like, the point is the division's okay, so is there a chance they fall off a little, somehow miss the playoffs? Then, yeah, he could get fired, but maybe 5%, 10%.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they missed the playoffs.
Me too.
But I don't think it's a lock that they win the division. Now, I know that Geno Smith with the contract, he's all squared away. For the Seahawks, I was reading today, there was a thought maybe they would get rid of him. I think the Seahawks are tough to evaluate because they have a good team, but I don't have a lot of trust in Geno Smith, and now you're going to start the Mike McDonald era. I do believe that the Cardinals will be improved. They got to get more talent, but now you're going to have another full season of Kyler Murray, and I liked what
Marvin
I saw.
Harrison Jr.
Well, potentially. You never know.
It seems fairly likely at this point.
I'm just saying, Caleb Williams goes 1. Maybe Jaden Daniels goes 2. I don't need my football team taking Drake May at 3. I think Drake May is just going to be a good quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a great quarterback. I actually,
unless there's a trade in the top 3, all 3 of those teams are going quarterback.
You're probably right, but it is funny because I randomly tweeted this out today. I said at 3, I'm at the point of I either want Jaden Daniels because I don't think they'll get Williams, or I want the Patriots to take Marvin Harrison Jr., who is the best player in this draft and I think will be a Hall of Famer, and then maybe use their second-round pick to trade for Justin Fields. That's what I threw out there. But you're probably right that it's quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr. winds up with the Cardinals, and now you have Kyler Murray throwing the football to Marvin Harrison Jr. But the Rams are the real team that's the threat in the NFC West. And it's crazy how quickly they have turned that around, because you had a scenario where it felt like McVay, Stafford, and Donald were all 1 foot in, 1 foot out, where it was they had 1 foot in the building and the other foot was at a golf course or somewhere in retirement, some tropical island. Now, after the season that they had, I think it has brought some new life and has sparked some new life to some of those older guys. I know McVay's not old, but Stafford and Donald being older as players, where now it's like, okay, you got Cooper Kupp, you got Puka Nacua, you got Williams at the running back position. We know what Aaron Donald still is, a defensive player. That team wasn't expected to be this good this year. And in an NFC that is wide open, where the 49ers are still the team to beat. But the Eagles, there's confidence problems. The Cowboys, there's no confidence. The Lions are right there. And we know how good the Lions are, but now they got to replicate it. It's like you look at the Rams, they're a team that could be in the Super Bowl. They could be in the Super Bowl next year. I don't think that's crazy. But I do wonder, here's the other part of it. Remember when the Seahawks won that Super Bowl, and then the Seattle Seahawks were in the next Super Bowl and you had the whole Malcolm Butler situation. You saw that team and that era and that run basically end right there because the team lost confidence in the quarterback and also the decision-making by the coaching staff to not run the football with Marshawn and to throw it with Russell Wilson. I just wonder when players didn't have a damn clue and weren't prepared for overtime and how controversial this decision was to take the ball first and the offense fail in the big game and now Steve Wilks gets scapegoated. I just wonder if Shanahan's going to lose the locker room like Pete Carroll lost the locker room. I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. I think the only way he loses his job is if they outright miss the playoffs. And I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. But he is under a lot of pressure because eventually when you are so close and you're there year in and year out and you don't get the job done, players get older. We already know the contract issues that the 49ers have. And then you got to get rid of guys or guys want to leave or you have to replace guys. So I'll do it this way. And I know you could define pressure in multiple ways. Pressure to win or pressure to keep your job. So the word pressure is very ambiguous. But I'll give you my 5 coaches that are under the most pressure entering next season. And you guys, do a little checks and balances here and tell me if anyone else should be kind of in the conversation. In at number 5 is Robert Saleh. We know Rodgers runs that team. But you missed the playoffs this year with Rodgers, you're going to be out of a job. And basically all offseason and all year you told us how good you would have been if you had Aaron Rodgers. Now, you would assume next year you're going to have Aaron Rodgers. Now you have to make the playoffs. So Saleh's in at 5. 4, I think it's Kyle Shanahan because now you're being referred to as the guy that can get to the Final 4, can get to the Final 2 for a bunch of years, but you don't win the big games. And that's why I thought it was just ridiculous in Shanahan's answer, where he goes, no, we've won big games here. You know what everyone means, though, by winning the big game. That's winning a Lombardi trophy. And your team overall had more talent than the Chiefs. Your team overall had more talent than the Packers and the Lions. And in all 3 of those games, it wasn't clear that you were the better team. Now, you were able to come back and win 2 of them, but then when spotted a 10-point lead, you couldn't get the job done against the Chiefs. In number 3, it's Sean McDermott. I think just similarly to Kyle Shanahan, when you keep on getting close but yet so far, then naturally you think you may need somebody else to get you over the hump. It feels more that way with McDermott than Shanahan, but you also got to remember the relationship of the GM and the head coach. Because it's not as if John Lynch is fed up with Kyle Shanahan, and I don't think Brandon Beane is fed up with Sean McDermott. So when there's good synergy and there's a good connection with the GM and the head coach, it could buy you an extra year or 2 until the owner swoops in and says, okay, now it's time to make a change. But McDermott, that team was 6-6. It looked like it was trending the wrong way. You get rid of Ken Dorsey. He was scapegoated, and Joe Brady did a nice job. I know there was a bunch of injuries on the defensive side of the ball with Milano and also Tre'Davious White, who keeps on getting hurt, unfortunately. But you have Josh Allen. Josh Allen has played well in the postseason. You don't know how much longer Stephon Diggs is going to be there. I think he'll be there for 1 more year. But this is an AFC where, yes, everyone's chasing Kansas City. You know the Bengals are going to bounce back with Burrow coming on back. You're right there as the top 3 team in the AFC. You eventually have to pull through. And I thought at times last year McDermott should have been fired. With the way that the season ended, I understand bringing him back, but there are better options out there right now than coaching that team than Sean McDermott. In at number 2, it's Nick Sirianni. Sirianni had a team that was in the Super Bowl. He exceeded all expectations to the next year. Let's just call it what it is. The Eagles ended up being one of the biggest jokes in football. Because you started 10-1, and you didn't just lose and get upset. You just crashed, you burned, and you got embarrassed. It wasn't as if you just got into the wild card round and you just weren't the better team that day. You got dragged around for almost 2 months where you went from the team to then the team that everyone was laughing about and everyone was pointing fingers at and everyone realized that there were big problems with the Eagles. And then in at number 1, it's Mike McCarthy. And Jerry Jones is a big reason to that. Final year of his deal. He's already talking about how he could work with Bill Belichick. And the Cowboys are the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, where they've been a great regular season team. But come postseason time, outside of one game up against a below 500 team the last 3 years, they were embarrassing against the Niners twice in games that they could have won. And then this year, they just got pantsed by the Green Bay Packers. So I think those are the 5 coaches heading into next season under the most pressure. McCarthy 1, Sirianni 2, McDermott 3, Shanahan 4, and Robert Saleh in at 5. Samter, anyone else that you think should be in the conversation?
There's a list of a couple guys. I think Sean Payton, I don't know if he's
one.
on a hot seat per se,
No,
but I
he's
mean,
not.
he has a lot to prove that it's not just Russell Wilson that was the problem there, that he can still coach.
Well, real quickly before you go to the next name, I do think that we talk about public perception. Like now there is a public perception about Shanahan that he can't win the big game. For Sean Payton, I think the public perception is now, okay, you had a really great run in New Orleans. You won 1 Super Bowl. You probably should have won more than 1 Super Bowl, but now you took a job that you wanted the Charger job instead of this job. You rushed to take this job. You saw an improvement by Russell Wilson, but now you can't stand Russell Wilson. He's inevitably going to get released. You had the whole situation where he didn't have to be petty with Nate Hackett as well. Sean has kind of become now a little bit unlikable and extremely arrogant. And I think people root against people that are arrogant. And I don't think anyone ever was really rooting for him to fail. Now I think there are people rooting for him to fail. And you got to make progress in year 2. And with obviously a new quarterback coming in, a roster that's not all that great, let's just be real about it, outside of Patrick Surtain, I think you have a lot of overrated players in that team. I don't expect them, like, if they finish 3rd in the division, honestly, that's probably a successful year for them. Because the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh get the benefit of the doubt. The Chiefs are the team that everyone's going after for. And quite frankly, I'm more confident with the Raiders and what they have with Max Crosby and Devontae Adams, not even knowing who their quarterback's going to be, than what the Broncos have. So I kind of look at the Broncos as the 4th team entering next year in that division.
Yeah, I agree. I think that division, we've been talking about the division being tough for a long time. It does actually feel like it's finally going to be the juggernaut that we thought it might be.
Potentially, because the Chiefs are the team that everyone's hunting. In theory, the Chargers should make the playoffs next year. But now will the Broncos and the Raiders, they made their decisions on coaches. Now we got to see what they're going to do at quarterback. And that is what's going to either make this really tough, or it's going to continue to make it a strong team and then a team that's like right on their heels but is really never in danger of taking Superman's cape away.
Another couple names I have here. The Jaguars fell off, so like if Peterson has another really bad year, obviously he turned them around with the first year after Urban Meyer, but like if he has another bad year and they underachieve and miss the playoffs, he could be, in question, especially if Trevor Lawrence regresses. Mike Tomlin, again, every year it seems like we have the same conversation about Tomlin.
I think that's more of a fan question than
yes,
than
I don't think the Steelers
question.
really have questions about him, but every year we have that question. So
and he hasn't won a playoff
pressure.
game since 2016.
And he's got to figure out he's got to figure out his damn quarterback, whether it's Justin Fields or whoever else. Exactly. Brian Daboll, great first season.
Great one.
Terrible second season.
And they're going to stink next year, too. They have no talent.
100%. And then the last one is the guy who we all thought was going to get fired this year, but he's getting that second chance next year, is Matt Eberflus. He's going to probably have a new quarterback under center. Maybe that gives him a little bit of rope. Maybe if they underachieve with Caleb Williams right off the bat, then maybe that's his sign to be shown the door.
Well, actually, it's a perfect way to tease next segment.
I knew it. That's why I left him for last.
Oh, that's why you're a good producer, all right? Regardless of what people may say during the show. We all
I know
that
Stu
you're a
says
very
the
good
weirdest
producer.
things when you don't hear his mic on.
When we come on back, the president of the Bears, did he give an endorsement to Justin Fields? We'll play you that next. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. We're talking about coaches who are under pressure for next season. Just to hit up the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb, ZachGelb. Jeff says, it's Lugnut, actually, who's a loyal listener to the show. Jeff said something else, which, I don't know, he's talking about some T-bone steak, and I have no clue what the heck he's actually talking about. He goes, Lugnut says, in Oregon, I low-key think Zach Taylor has some pressure this year. The standard has been set, and the injury year cannot be followed up with anything less than making the playoffs. So Zach Taylor's done a good job with the Bengals. He's one of those coaches where I don't think anyone thought he was a great head coach, but then you get the right quarterback, and then boom, you take off. And I don't know, and I don't think anyone's calling him a top 10 coach in this league. But when you say Zach Taylor, you go solid football coach. But he's 100% right. As long as you have Burrow healthy, you got to not only make the playoffs, but be a Super Bowl contender. Now, I'd have a tough time thinking, even with how good that AFC North is, that as long as Burrow is healthy, they're going to make the playoffs. And look, they almost made the playoffs this year with Jake Browning. And hey, even though you missed the playoffs this year, but you get a pass because Burrow was out, you got to laud really Zach Taylor a little bit for what he was able to do quickly with Jake Browning. Like, Zach Taylor didn't allow that to become a Jet situation once Rodgers went down, and you had Zach Wilson in there and a bunch of other quarterbacks who were just absolutely brutal. One more suggestion. Dean on Twitter says, what about John Harbaugh for the Ravens? As far as coaches to be concerned, he has the talent with Lamar Jackson as the quarterback. You know what? I'll say this. John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin are very similar. They're both coaches who everyone acknowledge are top 7 coaches in the league. You know, definitely top 10 coaches in the league. The Ravens exceeded expectations this year, but expectations change once you become a great team and what they did in the regular season, and there's no doubt about it that they failed. But I don't think anyone's rushing to fire John Harbaugh as the coach, but it was a poor look on him in the AFC Championship game when you had Zay Flowers taunting, and the guy that you brought in to be your offensive coordinator tried to win a certain way and not a way that was the most logically fit to your football team. So I don't think John Harbaugh is in danger of losing his job. But right now, just the feeling about the Ravens with Lamar as their quarterback is kind of similar to the way that we talk about, the Dallas Cowboys, or it's similar to the way that we talk about, some other teams in this league, like the Buffalo Bills and the 49ers, all in different degrees. But they're the teams that I don't care what they do in the regular season. We got to see if Dak could come through in the postseason. We got to see if Lamar Jackson could come through in the postseason. And you go through the list of, Josh Allen as well, Brock Purdy with Shanahan. They're just those teams. It's all different levels because the Niners have had more success. We've seen the Bills get to an AFC Championship game. We've seen the Ravens now get to an AFC Championship game. The Cowboys are stuck either in the wild card round or the second round. All those teams, I don't believe any of those 4 that we mentioned, anyone will take the bait in the regular season until they show their dominance in the postseason. And that's tough to manage as a coach, but yeah, I would be so shocked if John Harbaugh is not back with the Ravens after next season. Anyway, I believe most people agree that Caleb Williams is going to be the new quarterback of the Chicago Bears. And Justin Fields is going to get traded. But a lot of the reporting out there is saying that the decision is not as much of a lock as what people are making it out to be. So before I play you this audio from Kevin Warren, who used to be the commissioner of the Big Ten and is now the president of the Chicago Bears, let's just go around the room. What is the percentage that Justin Fields is back on the Bears next year? He is the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears next year. Stu, I'll start with you. What's your number?
It's very low. I'd say it's like 8%.
8. You kind of sounded disgusted with that question, by the way.
No, I'm just trying to think of like the chance. Maybe they think that you could mentor Caleb. I don't think so. Though. That's why I said
no.
Single digits. 8.
It's either Justin Fields is going to be the starter or Caleb Williams is going to be the starter. Yeah. I don't think there's a way you could do the Kansas City model. I don't think that's possible here. Okay. Samter, so Stu threw out that peculiar number of 8%. That's like a very Zach Gelb number. What would you say the number is that Caleb Williams is back with the Chicago Bears next season? Or excuse me, Justin Fields.
I think it's a little bit higher, 20%.
20.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, he's been there for 3 years. Mm-hmm. He's shown flashes. Usually by now you should know if your guy is the guy.
You sound like Urlacher now.
Yeah, but at the end of the day also, he's shown enough flashes that he still could be the guy. And if you have that number one pick, there's so many holes on that team that if you can get a haul,
Which
for that pick.
And they just did the year before.
Right. If you can get a haul for that pick, and you can move back and keep Fields and add an O-lineman, some receivers, some defensive players, and really just build around Fields, that might be the better way to go than to put a Caleb Williams on that roster without a lot around him. So
They have DJ Moore at least there.
yes, but I mean the O-line has been
And
right?
improved last year. I thought the O-line improved.
It's hard to tell with a guy like Fields because you can't tell if the O-line is doing a great job or a terrible job because Justin Fields is getting sacked a lot.
Let's just be real. Quarterbacks go to die in Chicago.
Right.
Like, they've never had a quarterback that everyone's like, oh, I have to have in Chicago. Rex Grossman was their quarterback when they got to a Super Bowl. We praised Jay Cutler for his time with the Chicago Bears. Let me go to Mr. Chicago because I know he has some roots there.
Does Sid Luckman count?
Yeah. Let's talk about like things that our listening audience were actually alive for, Ack. I knew Ack was going to give me one name or he was going to be like, hold on a second, Chief. What do we have cooking here? Percentage that Justin Fields is back next year with the Bears.
0.
I like Ack. Ack's having takes today. Look at Ack. I'm going to go there is a 2% chance because I do think Fields should be back, but I don't think he will be back because the other part about this, too, got 2 years left, assuming they would pick up the fifth-year option.
Mm-hmm.
I know that right now we don't know if he could be the guy. Like, I think there's an argument still to be made that he could be the guy, and, you know, maybe you get Marvin Harrison Jr. with DJ Moore and you put him in the best position to succeed. But you got to see him make strides. Your microphone was on there for a second, Samter.
Hello.
Yeah. I heard you say something about Steve Spagnuolo, and I'm like, well, that was in hour number 1. Well, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3.
We only work in radio.
Yeah, well, it was good that it wasn't a hot mic incident. We didn't need Samter to apologize for something.
Yes. But
I think because of the contractual situation and the fact that they just traded out of the number 1 spot a year ago, even though it worked out for them, I just think it's time to reset, and they're going to go to Williams.
I agree. And I guess the $64,000 question is, what does Ryan Poles think of Caleb Williams? But if everything we've seen and are reading and hearing about Caleb Williams is that he is the next franchise quarterback, and you're still after 3 years trying to figure out what Justin Fields is, we've seen some good, we've seen some bad, and which way does it go? I don't think you have a choice but to reset.
And the other thing, too, is I was extremely disappointed with USC this year. Now, I know their defense stunk, and you had Riley be just arrogant and trying loyal to his guy and Alex Grinch at DC before they got rid of him. But that Notre Dame game, like that was the one game, and everyone gets a mulligan, where I watch Williams and I'm like, for a guy that's supposed to be all that and was all that a year ago.
I agree with you.
He stunk in that football
I agree.
game.
Look, the other side of the coin is maybe Ryan Poles is that high on whether it's Jaden Daniels or Luke May or
Drake
May. Drake May. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Luke is his brother.
Good shot for UNC that one year.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. So or maybe there's another guy. So, but I think to get back to your point again, if you're still trying to figure out what Justin Fields is after 3 years, I think you have to reset.
Here is Kevin Warren, the president of the Bears, giving big-time praise to Justin Fields. Listen up.
I come to the table, I'm a supporter of Justin, because I got a chance to work with him when I was commissioner of the Big Ten Conference. He is incredibly talented. He is smart. He works hard. And he wants to be a great NFL football player. And so now he just needs to make sure that he has the support around him. He's working hard. And then I would love to see him, this offseason, make sure he's totally healthy going into the season next year. Justin has a rare combination of intelligence, of size, of strength, and speed. You forget how big of a man he is until you're up on him. He's not a small man. And so I just think every year he's going to continually get better. So I'm glad he's on the Chicago Bears.
My favorite part about that is Kevin Warren saying, he's not a small man. He's not a small man. I thought that was pretty funny. I kind of roll my eyes at everything that he just said because I'm not saying he doesn't believe those things, but it's just easy for me to look at that and you're praising someone where a lot of people think you're going to move off of him and not look at it kind of as you're setting up to overhype him so you get the most back via a trade. That's the way that I at least thought about it when Warren was saying this.
And I think, too, now they're not going to say this, but I think it's something that you and I can talk about is look at the quarterbacks. The ultimate goal is obviously the Super Bowl. And look at the quarterbacks who have been there and won in recent years. And you have to ask yourself, can Justin Fields be this guy? And I don't know if they have that answer or if anybody has that answer.
And you're talking right about Mahomes, Brady, Manning,
even
Breeze.
Matthew Stafford. I mean, Matthew Stafford's been in the league and played at a high level for a long time. He's not in that class as the other guys, but he's still a very good quarterback. Can Justin Fields even be to the level of Matthew Stafford? And you
would say no.
And and you go back to, this is even more several years down the road. When the Eagles got there, they had Carson Wentz at the time was having an outstanding year, and had Nick Foles, who kind of took it the rest of the way.
But Nick Foles played sensational.
Yeah.
And I don't and trust me, I think Fields has a higher ceiling than Nick Foles just in terms of consistency. But Nick Foles played as good as any quarterback ever has in a 2-game run. You needed that production. And I know you could look at, Brad Johnson and Trent Dilfer and even Nick Foles, who was an anomaly. But, those things don't usually happen. You are right. You look at the last 20 years, it's been Stafford, Russell Wilson, Breeze, Brady, Manning, Mahomes. There's a lot of guys that are in the way, and you're in the NFC, so you don't have to go directly up against Mahomes, but you get to the Super Bowl, in all likelihood, Mahomes is right there standing in your way. We'll come on back with the news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's send it over to the man to my left. Here he is, the wallet stealer himself, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
Well, the Bears have 2 very high picks in the upcoming draft and are clearing some more cap space as well, potentially to go after some free agents with the free agency period just a couple of weeks away. A couple of Bears are finding themselves on the market with Cody Whitehair reportedly released, as well as veteran safety Eddie Jackson. Tonight will be a special night in basketball, not only because it's the end of the first half of the NBA season, or not because it's the end of the first half of the season, but because Caitlin Clark can become the all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball. Iowa hosts Michigan, and the Hawkeyes senior sensation needs just 8 points to break Kelsey Plum's record, and for the 22-year-old Iowa native, it's beyond her wildest dreams.
I dreamed of doing really big things, playing in front of big crowds, going to the Final Four. Maybe not quite on this level. I think that's really hard to dream. And, obviously you can always exceed expectations, even your own. And I think that's been one of the coolest parts.
In the NBA tonight, 3 games left on the schedule. The Warriors, after seeing their 5-game winning streak end last night, are in Utah. The West-leading Timberwolves go for their 4th in a row against the Blazers. And the Bucks, looking to bounce back from Tuesday's loss, are in Memphis. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, the JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
So the Bears have actually made 2 moves in the last 25 minutes. They have released Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair. So you got a long-time safety released and then a long-time offensive lineman released as well. What does this mean in the Justin Fields and Caleb Williams situation for the Bears? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. It's the Saturday Night Huge Show on CBS Sports Radio. We want your huge opinions. I don't know why. Whenever I whisper and give the phone number, I always think about Bill Simonson, who's the longtime Detroit area talk show host. And he used to host here on CBS Sports Radio. And he would always say, it's the Saturday Night Huge Show. We want your huge opinions. Coming up in 30 minutes from now, another award-winning update from Kevin Dexter. It'd always be like an obscure name. Let's go to Adrian in Maryland, wants to chime in on Justin Fields and the Bears. Yo, Adrian.
Yo, Zach, what's going on? Good afternoon, buddy.
Hey, appreciate it.
My thing is when I called about this before, I said keep Fields. You trade down, you're still going to get Marvin Harrison. You trade down, you still get picks. But with them changing the offensive coordinator, you don't want Fields to learn another offense under the head coach again. So that kind of takes him out of the realm there. I don't like Caleb Williams. I think he's mentally weak.
Why do you think that?
Just some of the stuff you've seen at USC. Going into the stands, and crying on his mother's shoulders, and that can't happen in the NFL because people are going to eat that up. Other teams are going to eat that up.
So I don't really have a problem with him jumping into the stands and crying in his mother's arms, but I will say, and maybe this is more of the new athlete, and you got to remember, being someone that kind of grew up in the social media era, I think there is now a direct way to contact the athlete, and a lot of this stuff, and thanks for the phone call, Adrian, is very negative on social media, and I do believe that there is an awareness by Caleb Williams that what's said to him and tweeted to him on social media or Instagram message to him, DM to him, it does get to him a little bit, and he does respond to that type of noise. But I think that's just also now what's going to happen with a lot of athletes now. I don't think it was necessary for him to jump into the stands and cry in his mother's arms, but I don't really hold that against him. I'd rather have a quarterback have emotion than be fine after losing a game and then just go home and do nothing. So I won't crush him for that. Anyway, let's update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
So KTV7 in Omaha, they caught up with the fan, Paul Contreras, who tackled one of the shooters yesterday at the Chiefs championship parade that went from a joyous moment to a moment of tragedy. Here is the fan, Paul, talking to KTV7 in Omaha.
One guy was hollering and saying, stop him. Or catch him, tackle him, whatever, and he's just bailing running. And out of nowhere, I heard that guy hollering, so I'm just like, okay, well, I'm right here, and I didn't even think about it. It was just a reaction. I didn't hesitate. It was just do it. So I went to go tackle him, and another gentleman did the same thing. And as I'm tackling him, I see his weapon either fall out of his hand or out of his sleeve. So when I seen that hit the ground, I'm like, oh, we got to take this guy down. And so, like I said, I did, and another good Samaritan did, and we held him down. And it seemed like forever, but it probably wasn't. It was like 30 seconds holding him down, and me and the other gentleman are hollering at ongoers, where's the cops? Get the cops over here, get the cops over here, we got him.
That's just, really chilling audio. Sends a chill up your spine. And who knows what would have happened if Paul didn't tackle that man and you hear the weapon fell out of his pocket or wherever he was holding it as well. The Chiefs, bare minimum, they should give that guy season tickets for life and a Super Bowl championship ring. It's the least that they could do with the way that he stepped up at the parade yesterday. Here is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I saw this on Inside the NFL. They were excited when the 49ers received the ball in overtime.
Go with the toss?
Yeah. Which way you want to kick it? They call it. They call it, right?
Well, they got a coin flip.
Yeah, they call a coin flip. It's their coin flip, right? Which way do you want to kick it?
We want the ball, Fred. San Francisco, you are still the visitors. What is your call?
Tails again.
He called tails again. It is tails.
Oversee.
You want the ball. Which way do you want to kick?
We're going to kick that way.
San Francisco will receive first in overtime. Good luck, gentlemen.
They want it. They want the ball. They wanted it. Hey, they want it. They wanted it, baby.
We want them to have the ball. They want it. They can have it.
Hey, even if we score a touchdown, they still get the ball. I didn't know that.
If we won the toss, we were going to kick off too. We got what we wanted.
It's kind of crazy whether you agree with the decision or not to take the ball first. How you have Kyle Juszczyk, who had no clue the overtime rules as well. That's just inexcusable to me. And that's a reflection on the coach. And not only that, it's crazy how adamant the Chiefs were and how they knew what they wanted to execute. That's why they're champions. and the 49ers are just like looking around having no clue what was going on.
The one thing I will say, though, is after the game, when Juszczyk said what he said about not knowing, I thought that they didn't know while the drive was happening, or even after the drive, they didn't realize. It sounds like from the video, as they were getting ready for their first drive in overtime, that's when they realized, oh, it doesn't matter if we score a touchdown, they still get the ball. So that changes it a little bit, that they went on that opening drive in overtime knowing a touchdown doesn't win the game for us.
Well,
so it's different than what I thought after the game when they were like, we had no idea.
Did that go through the entire sideline, though? That's the other thing.
If you watch the video, Juszczyk's walking into a huddle of other guys.
I'm
so
just
it
saying.
sounds like they probably huddled up and said, hey, touchdown. It sounds like they all were kind of told at that moment.
And I wonder how many people in that moment were like, oh, man, we made the wrong decision. Yeah, because that's the other part of this as well. Last night, Isaiah Stewart of the Pistons was arrested after punching Drew Eubanks before the game. This is Kevin Durant on the incident between Eubanks and Stewart.
It's a lot of noise around our game. There's a lot of that comes with being an NBA player. You keep the main thing, and all of that stuff will fade away. It's unfortunate what happened before the game. It's supposed to be a brotherhood. But I also understand dudes get into stuff, and stuff may happen, but we try to avoid that in this league, but it happens, and hopefully we can move on from it. And we all support Drew and got Drew's back, and he'll move past it.
So what's interesting to me about this is sometimes we feel like in sports, like you're disconnected from the real world and you don't like it to get litigious, or you don't like the cops to get involved. Like during a game, if someone was to punch someone, I don't think anyone gets arrested. But since this happened before the game, maybe it opened up that door for someone to get arrested. Like it is interesting to me. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but when you think of sports and someone getting into a fight, you never think it leads to arrest. But here's what happened before the game.
And it sounds like it was a sucker punch. It sounded like they got in each other's faces.
Yeah.
And from what we're reading is that Eubanks turned around and walked away, and then Stewart punched him in the back like a sucker punch.
And Stewart's a hothead.
And security was there also. So at that point, it's probably a little bit different of a story.
You just don't think, like I totally get what you're saying. I just never thought it would actually lead to someone getting arrested, because sometimes we look at sports differently and it's like, oh, that's a different world. That's a different set of rules. But here you are. When I read that earlier this morning, I was like, wow, that's extremely juicy.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And away we go, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. The Kansas City Chiefs are your world champions. They also have some cap space available. And the craziest part is, I don't even think they played their best brand of football, and they still found a way to hoist the Lombardi Trophy once again. Like, the Chiefs won a Super Bowl where in the AFC Championship game, their offense was shut out in the second half. And then in the Super Bowl, Mahomes only had one touchdown drive in regulation. And it was still better than everyone else's. So there are times when you're in a dynasty when there's a year that you win when you don't play your best. But it speaks to the nucleus that you have and the core that you have, that even when you're not at your best, and even when you're not at your best form of being great, it's still more of a heart of a champion and still more efficient than what any other team has to offer. So now there's always this thought when you have multiple guys that have won multiple championships. What do people start to prioritize? Is it winning again in Kansas City? Or is it cashing in your opportunity that you have to get a big payday? And you can't keep everyone. But someone that you do need to keep for the Chiefs is Chris Jones. This is Chris Jones at the parade yesterday, making it clear that he'll be back with the Kansas City Chiefs next season.
We will be back here next year. And for those
who won't Chris Jones go? I ain't going nowhere, baby. Woo! I will be here this year, next year, and the year after. 3P, 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 3P.
I actually like hearing Chris Jones because I actually could understand what he was saying, unlike Travis Kelce yesterday. And I have no problem being in the bag at a championship parade. You should be. You should be drunk as a skunk. You should be having fun. But man, Travis Kelce yesterday was incoherent. I had no clue what Travis Kelce was. I know what he was trying to sing when you hear the song, but Travis Kelce didn't even know what he was trying to say. By the way, Samter, I think we've all got to this stage of life, and I'm the youngest one here, and even I'm at the stage where I can't drink like I once did. You know, my cousin can still drink like an animal. He hit me up last night. He's like, "You want to go out in New York City?" I'm like, "No. I was just in Vegas for a week. I have no desire to drink any alcohol this week. I am falling asleep and hopefully trying to fall asleep rather early. I am not going out." So Travis Kelce is 34. Stu, how old are you? Can I guess?
Sure.
Don't get offended here.
I won't.
So I know Stu's older than me. I'm 29. Stu's 33? 32?
32.
Okay. So 32, so I was spot on. Samter, you're what, 66?
I hate you.
45, right? No, 43. 43 you are. And here's the crazy part. I know Samter's age. I know he's 43. I would have never thought you were actually 43. I know you worked here for a long time, so you could kind of do the math that you're rather on the older side or getting to the older side.
You're just digging the hole deeper. I mean, first I'm 66, now I'm just getting older.
No, but seriously, I thought you were like 37. That's what I thought. But it's 43. And also, you hear Samter talk before the show. You know Samter has to deal with, like, real-life problems. You know, always FaceTiming his little one, which is great and adorable, and I love when that happens in the newsroom. But what's going on with this boiler of yours? I've been hearing about this boiler now for like 2 stinking weeks. What has happened with your boiler? I even heard you before the start of the show. I had to tell Samter, hey, Spags needs to change the appearance on the show from 3:20 to 3 o'clock. And trying to talk to Samter was trying to talk to the President of the United States. I couldn't talk to him. I had to scribble a note on a piece of paper and write to Samter, hey, we're 6 minutes away from the show starting. Spags is coming on at the top of the hour.
By the way, we were 20 minutes away from the show starting, but it's okay. And, you know, there's this great new thing called...
I don't know about that, Stu. Stu kind of gave me a look.
When you came in here, it was more like...
10?
Like 8 or 9 minutes. It was like 50-something.
Well, I first went over to you, and you were like, hold on, I'm on the phone. I'm taking care of business. I'm like, all right, it's serious. And then after like 10 more minutes when he's still on the phone, I'm like, all right, let me kind of be like Bill Belichick, where I'm not resigning from being the HC of CBS Sports Radio, but I'll scribble something on a napkin that says Spags is coming on right at the top of the show. But seriously.
We do have this great invention called a cell phone with text messaging.
You were
you
on
should
the
try
phone,
it sometime.
though. You were on the phone. You were locked in. I wasn't going to text you there. You probably would have never seen it. You would have got the ding. You'd be like, I'm not talking to this bloviating jackass.
I'm going to be honest. You've probably texted me like weeks ago that I still haven't looked at. So, yeah, that makes about sense.
All right. Well, maybe we'll be looking for a new producer sooner rather than later.
Hey, now.
No, that. All right. No, now. No. I like the setup and what we have working here on this show right now. So, but what's happening with your boiler? Like, where are we at right now? Because
it's a double whammy. So the boiler is a brand new boiler. You know, like they're supposed to last like 15 years or so. So I mean, this is like a 1.5 to 2 year old boiler. And, you know, it keeps having issue after issue. But on top of the boiler having issues, so and it's freezing out. It's 39 degrees today, it was 29 degrees today. Mm-hmm. So it's one thing if the boiler goes down and it's like 50, but it keeps going down when it's like in the 20s and the 30s. So that sucks. But on top of the boiler not working, like in, New York City, everything was built, a long time ago, right? This was like, old, early 1900s, late 1800s. This building was built like in 1915. The pipes are old. We've replaced some pipes and this and that, but it's an old building.
So it's not like you. It's not like a young old person.
No. It's an old building with like a replaced hip here or there, like maybe like a pacemaker or something.
Are we talking about a program director for a second?
Yeah,
a
no,
replaced
seriously.
hip?
Holy cow. And so there's just a lot of like small little things that are just kind of getting older. And the boiler room has this little pit area that some of the water has to get pumped out of by something called a sump pump. And so sometimes the sump pump stops working.
Sump pump.
And then it floods the entire boiler room. And when it floods the boiler room, it knocks out the boiler and it knocks out the hot water. And that's what happened twice in the past week.
Twice?
That the sump pump, or in the past like 2 weeks, once when I was in Florida with the baby, and once while we were in Vegas. So not only is it happening, it's happening when I wasn't home. If I was home, I could deal with it. If not...
Are you handy?
Very.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see you being handy.
Yeah, so I could do a lot of this stuff when I'm there, but having to do it over the phone is another issue. And then it turns out that when we had the plumber come by, that there's an issue with the sump pump that has to be repaired. And so now we're trying to work out the details of how to fix it and all that other nonsense.
Well, as we discuss, like, is Justin Fields the guy in Chicago? Is this boiler guy the guy for the Samter residents? It seems like the same mistakes are happening over and over and over again. Now, I know a very good boiler guy, the great Pete Morgan at Peerless Boilers, if you do need a boiler guy.
So like I said, the issue isn't as much with the boiler as it is with the flooding of the boiler room, which then impacts the boiler.
Okay.
So that's not a boiler kind of issue. It's just this drainage issue, and that's a whole other story.
You've been clogging up those toilets too much?
But we're going to give this plumber one last try. They've done very good work for a very long time for us, and they give us good prices. However, if this continues to be an issue after this next repair job, then I'll talk to your boys.
So Samter is a young 43. Stu is an appropriate 32. And I am 29 years old. Getting back to where I started this, I think we could all agree, at least Stu and I can. I don't know about Samter. Samter, after seeing him in Vegas, he could be a little bit of a party animal. We all can't drink like how we used to drink. So today, Travis Kelce's probably waking up hungover as hungover could be. What is your number one go-to hangover helper the next day after I'm talking about a big night of drinking? Samter, I'll start with you. I feel like you're a big foodie.
Gonna be food wise?
Yeah.
Because usually for me it's a liquid diet. It's like a Gatorade or some sort of like a vitamin water. Just a lot of hydration and a lot of electrolytes.
Bloody Mary for Samter, he's about to say.
No, I'm gonna be honest, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but like having a drink or two the morning after a late night of drinking is oftentimes the best way, because what it does is it kind of eases you back into soberness, as opposed to just waking up and having to go from like hammered to sober in a heartbeat. You give yourself a Bloody Mary and you kind of, you ease yourself back in.
No, I hate
and
Bloody
you can
Marys.
ease yourself back out. But usually after a long night of drinking, it's more about like Gatorade, vitamin water, hydration. That really helps me.
Some high quality H2O with
And if not, then I'm going with like a ham, egg, and cheese on a croissant or on a bagel. Something nice and greasy with a little bit of protein, something like that.
Okay, Stu?
Kind of with Mike, I'm going to do a sausage, egg, and cheese on a bagel with hash browns.
Oh, sausage. I'm not a sausage guy.
Sausage or...
Ham, bacon, I'm all for it. Sausage. Get your minds out of the gutter, you dirty. Yeah, of course you're 29. Look at you. Freaking 29-year-old kids.
Not a sausage
I'm dealing with
guy.
a bunch of immature punks over here. I say the word sausage, and immediately Zach is giggling like a schoolboy.
No, I was laughing because Stu was laughing, and I thought Stu's
Don't
reaction
blame me
was
for
funny.
this. This is not my fault.
It would have been better if you were like, yeah, I am a big sausage guy. Hey-oh. My favorite thing, and after New Year's, I needed some help. I did. I woke up the next day. I was smart when I was drunk. I bought a water, but I wasn't that smart because I didn't drink the water. Like it was just right on my table in my living room. So I got up and I made the pilgrimage to the local bagel shop, which is about like 7 blocks from my apartment. And I'm good usually with the bacon, egg, and cheese. But that day, I was looking at the menu. They had a pastrami omelet on a bagel. It was good. I felt like $1 million after that. But I feel like you need something greasy after a day of drinking. Now, like there are a lot of times where you then think you need to eat a lot, and after having a little bit, you're like stuffed quicker than normal. But for Travis Kelce, don't you got to go to Jack Stacks today? Like Stu knows what I'm talking. Don't you get the fire kiss wings?
Yeah.
You get the brisket. You get the delicious French fries there, the mac and cheese as well. Aren't you just holding court at Jack Stacks? That's what I'm doing in Kansas City.
You have to.
Yeah, but you don't have that much. Like, listen, having like a ham, egg, and cheese, or
he's also a large man. Travis
but
Kelce.
like when I'm hungover, I don't have a huge appetite. I want like a quick thing that I can have that's greasy, right? Just something quick to just kind of throw into my body. But like, I don't want like a full on, ribs and brisket and mashed potatoes and mac and cheese. That's just too much when you're hungover.
Ma, those ain't no mashed potatoes. One of my favorite movies of all time, Notorious B.I.G., when he has a white substance under his bed, and he was selling that white substance. We are a family a program. What am I trying to? What's the word I'm looking for?
PG-13.
No,
family-friendly program.
Thank you, family-friendly program.
Are we talking about flour?
So I won't. Whatever
Sugar?
you want to use your imagination.
I got it.
Little sugar, do 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 do. But yeah, the mom threw out the mashed potatoes under his bed, and he was like, "Ma, those ain't no mashed potatoes." One of the great movie lines I thought of all time. But anyway. Travis Kelce hungover today. Travis Kelce definitely needed a hangover helper. Now, when we get back to the Chiefs, Chris Jones wants to return. And when you get into the whole three-peat situation with the Chiefs, it's definitely possible that they could three-peat. They're going to be expected to win the Super Bowl next year. But here's the crazy part. They got a lot of salary cap space. So you got to get Chris Jones done first. And once you get Chris Jones done, then you could go back to the offense that the last 2 years they haven't had Tyreek Hill. And even though the offense at times may have slowed down, it still was good enough to win a Lombardi trophy. So do you maybe call up Tennessee and see if you could trade for DeAndre Hopkins? But also when you are in this championship mode, you have guys that want to join you to go win a championship or another championship. Now, I think Mike Evans wants a payday, but will Mike Evans take less to go to Kansas City? Can you maybe get a Tyler Boyd, who is a free agent as well? I don't think this would be a big-time signing, but Kendrick Bourne, who joined us on Radio Row, like that would be a good landing spot for Kansas City. It would be like a minimal increase, but it's still an increase. So guys that are disgruntled and are in the final year of their deals, or guys that are free agents, you have to consider Kansas City. And let's say they call up Tennessee. They're like, hey, we'll give you a third-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins in a walk year anyway. I think that for a one-year gamble, it's worth it. It's 100% worth it. So the Chiefs, what is scary, they could get even better this offseason and be even more of this dominant force where the last 2 years there's been moments of vulnerability, but still at the end of the year they get into the dance and they find a way to be better than everybody else. So here's the thing, too. If they three-peat, like you look at the Brady-Mahomes argument, if we're allowed to talk about that, the Brady-Mahomes kind of argument, the thing that Brady has, he has 7 right now. Mahomes only has 3. And not only that, you have a scenario where Brady always has the trump card of, I beat Mahomes in an AFC title game. I beat Mahomes in a Super Bowl. Well, Mahomes could get one over Brady by saying, well, hey, I was the quarterback that won 3 Super Bowls in a row. Because Brady, as great as he was, did not win 3 Super Bowls in a row. They won back-to-back in 03-04, Super Bowl 38, Super Bowl 39. They won Super Bowl 51. Brady then threw for 505 yards. They lost Super Bowl 52, and then they bounced back the following year, and they won Super Bowl 53. But that would be enormous when you get into that inane conversation of Brady or Mahomes and what separates them, even though Mahomes would then get his 4th ring, and he would still be behind Brady and would still never beat Brady in a Super Bowl or an AFC championship game. Mahomes could then have that unique argument of, well, I am the guy that has 3 straight Super Bowls, which I think would be important.
And it's not just the Mahomes angle also. You start thinking about like the greatest teams in NFL history, right? You think about the 70s Steelers, the 60s Packers, the 80s, 49ers, the 90s Cowboys, then the Patriots of
Steelers,
the 2000s. Yeah. If the Chiefs win 3 in a row and 4 in 6 years, you might have to start calling them the greatest team in NFL history. Or at least right up there.
Greatest run, you mean?
I'm just talking about like just the greatest team, the greatest, because listen, like those 70s Steelers, right? Of course, a few guys moved around, but like it was like that main core.
But
hold on, main core.
But when you say greatest team, isn't that more individual season? You're just talking about greatest dynasty.
I guess greatest dynasty.
Yeah, because when I think greatest team, I think like one individual season. But yeah, hey, if they could go win 3 in a row, And then you still, like, either they don't win then 4 in a row. You're going to say that, and then in the next 3 years after that, they'll win 1 more. It's definitely an argument that could be made, but let's see if it ends up happening. Here's the other thing, as we just saw it with 20 years. Brady went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl, which is crazy looking back at it. But then there was also years, even when Brady was winning, where then there would be another year where, like, finally Peyton Manning would break through. And then you had Drew Brees break through as well. Like, there are a lot of good quarterbacks right now that have come up short and have been derailed by Patrick Mahomes. When is the year or 2 or 3 that it happens when those guys break through? And we'll see if any of those guys are actually going to be able to do that. Because, Mahomes is the standard right now. Brady was the standard. But then, like, the notch below Brady was Peyton Manning. None of these guys right now in the NFL are Peyton Manning. Like, as great as Joe Burrow is, he's not Manning. As great as Josh Allen is, he's not Manning. Lamar Jackson's not Manning. Like, you go around those other guys, like, who's going to be the guy that finds a way to break through? And look how many more Super Bowls guys could have won if Brady wasn't in their way. It's kind of the same thing when you're sitting here now with Patrick Mahomes. How many guys are going to get screwed and never win one because of Mahomes? And then how many will eventually break through? We got to take a break here, though, on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Joining us in 5 minutes, he is the morning host on 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. We'll do a little double dip. We'll talk Niners. We'll talk Warriors with Bonta Hill when we return in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Bonta Hill does a phenomenal job of 95.7 The Game as their morning drive host. Also does a bunch of coverage for the Golden State Warriors as well. And he's kind enough to join us right now on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Bonta, appreciate the time as always. I would ask you how you're doing, but I'm sure you're still in mourning after your San Francisco 49ers and Kyle Shanahan blew another big game.
Oh, my, Zach. Way to intro that one. Not only that, the Warriors blew a 15-point lead last night, too. Gave up 44 points in the fourth quarter. So I'm not well right now. This has been a rough week for your boy and every single Bay Area sports fan.
Yeah, I'll get to the Niners in just a second. But since you brought up the Golden State Warriors last night, that's kind of karma to Draymond Green. Like, you just get back from the suspension, and then you're picking a fight with Nurkic and Kevin Durant. It's like, just shut up already. Like, just play basketball, please.
Yeah, you know, Draymond's going to talk. That's what he does. We kind of love him for that. But sometimes less is more, especially after what's transpired this season, in which, you know, look, there's a blessing in disguise, right? He got suspended. We saw the extension of Jonathan Kuminga because we know Steve Kerr wasn't going to play Jonathan Kuminga if Draymond never gets suspended. So at least we know we have a player there in JK. But you're right. Phoenix happens. He's playing good basketball. All the other stuff just overshadows how well you're playing and how well the team is playing. And then again, he's on the court yesterday for a 30-second violation, or 30 seconds in the key. Nobody calls it because he's on the ground holding his head or whatnot. So, yeah, it's a lot going on out here in the Bay Area. Draymond Green, we just want to, you know, he's on the edge right now. We know it's just a matter of time maybe before something else happens. You hope that it doesn't. You hope that he learned his lesson. But, you know, the Nurkic and KD stuff is just like, oh, man, do we have to?
I know that the report came out the other day that the Warriors, I guess, were trying to get LeBron at the deadline or whatever was going on. That was never going to happen via trade, but LeBron could opt out at the end of this year. What is the percentage of chance, in your opinion, that LeBron ever teams up with Steph and is playing for Golden State?
I think anything is possible in this league. I mean, I didn't think Kevin Durant would ever be a Golden State Warrior. That happened, and they became the Avengers, and they dominated the league. I didn't think that James Harden could get traded from Houston to Brooklyn or Houston to Brooklyn to Philly and back to L.A. as a Clipper. Anything is possible in this league. And if he is a free agent, we know LeBron is very strategic in his moves here. He sees what's going on with the Golden State Warriors. He's always said, you know, especially over the last 2 years, I would love to play with Stephen Curry. So where there's smoke, there is fire. That report didn't come out of nowhere. We know Clutch Sports can control the narrative as well as anybody out there. So I think I don't want to put a percentage number on it, Zach, but I think it is possible. And the Warriors always love stars. One thing I know about Joe Lacob, great owner, right? He does what he does with the luxury tax and with the salaries. He has no problem playing 4 stars at one time. Joe Lacob is enamored with stars. Peter Guber, the co-owner of the Golden State Warriors, has always said, this is entertainment. We're in an entertainment business as well as the sports business. And how entertaining, even at the age of 40, will LeBron James be playing with Stephen Curry, alongside Stephen Curry, I should say. So there is a chance if he does opt out, Zach.
So here's my problem with the Warriors, and it's the biggest reason why Bob Myers walked away. He didn't have the guts to say goodbye to people that he won championships with, and it seems like the Warriors, like what they did with Draymond, they reward people what they did in the past, what they won't do potentially for the present. Like, what's going to happen with the future of Klay Thompson? Because we know Klay is an absolute legend, but I can't go give him a big-time deal this offseason.
Yeah, I don't think max money, I don't think that's going to happen. I do think Klay will assess the situation and look around. Look, I was talking to somebody from the Clippers yesterday in their front office before the game, and they said, what's the deal with Klay Thompson? I said, look, man, he's having career lows shooting from three, from the field. His minutes are getting reduced. He's just not the same player. And you hate it because he was at the height of his powers in 2019 and to miss 941 days and go through all that rehab. 941 days of missing basketball. I mean, that's tough for a guy who lives in the gym. With that said, other teams still value his shooting. This league values shooting. You still watch the games, and teams are saying, you know what? We're not going to allow him to get any airspace. We're still going to guard him like he's prime Klay Thompson. There will be a contender if the Warriors don't give him a deal or give him a short-term 2 to 3 year deal, maybe $20 to $25 million because he is Klay Thompson per year. I do believe there will be a contender who would be willing to pony up that type of money because of the threat of his shot. Look, 37% for a lot of players in this league, they will raise their hands and take that. That's the truth. How many 33% shooters do we see in this league? 29%. Like, everybody was going crazy over Pascal Siakam. He's shooting 29% from three. In a league that values shooting at an all-time high. So if the Warriors don't give him a short-term deal, which I think they will, and I think Klay would want to stay, there will be a contender in this league that says, we'll take Klay Thompson and the threat of his shot-making ability, especially from the perimeter.
Bonta Hill here with us. This is not an in-the-moment take when we get back to the 49ers. I actually defended Shanahan for taking the ball first, but the last few years, and I want to be careful when I use this word, I've called him overrated. Now, that's not me saying he sucks, he's awful, he's terrible.
Yeah.
I acknowledge he's a top 5 coach in football, but people talk about him as if he invented the sport and he keeps on blowing these big games. What has been your view of Shanahan and not only losing another Super Bowl, but then all the other things that he's embarrassed himself with in the last 48, 72 hours?
Wow. Boy, I've had a love-hate relationship with Kyle Shanahan. There's people think out here in the Bay Area that think I'm not a Shanahan fan and that I hate him as head coach. Listen, I just assess the situation how the fans do. There's a lot of fans out here in the Bay Area saying, well, he's the next Bill Walsh, man. He's the next Bill Walsh and all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa. We're talking about Bill Walsh, the inventor of the West Coast offense, where teams still running a segment of or a variation of that offense. Let's chill on that. Let him just be George Seifert. How about being Steve Mariucci or, I don't know, Jim Harbaugh? Listen, man, Shanahan is good at his job. He's a good play designer. He does know how to manipulate defenses. And look, I gave him a pass for 28-3 in Atlanta because Dan Quinn's a head coach. He's a defensive guy. Your defense allowed the Patriots to score 25 points, so we could disagree on that one. But in all the big games that the 49ers have lost, the same things have come to fruition. Super Bowl 54, clock management, right? The trust of a quarterback. If you don't like Jimmy Garoppolo, Zach, tell me why, with 1:49 left in the fourth quarter, 3 timeouts, the ball at midfield, and Patrick Mahomes on the other sideline, why would you throw 4 straight passes?
Yeah.
Why would you even risk Mahomes getting the ball back? So even if Garoppolo hits Emmanuel Sanders with that deep shot, there's still 1:30 left and Mahomes has the ball. Like, I don't like that situation. 2021, 10-point lead, NFC Championship, LA Rams. You run the fullback dive on third down. You have Trent Williams motion across the formation with a hobbled ankle. He couldn't even walk that game. But then you punt it. You don't get aggressive. The Rams, they throw one up to Jaquiski Tardy, drops it. Next thing you know, 45 yards with Beckham, Jimmy Ward, unnecessary roughness, decision-making, clock management, game situation. You get a little timid at times. And then, of course, the Super Bowl. I mean, where do I start? We talked about the real time with Shanahan not calling a timeout on second down with Rashee Rice. It's 1:09 left. You know in the Super Bowl, there's a 30-minute halftime. You just scored in real time at about 4:47 p.m. The Niners didn't touch the ball again until about 5:47 p.m. So when you do get the ball back with 23 seconds left and you have 2 timeouts, you're not going to throw a couple shots down the field to try to get a field goal to go up 2 scores. And then when you do get an interception from Patrick Mahomes and you set up shop at the Kansas City 44-yard line, you throw 8 passes as opposed to 1 run on your first 3 possessions. So we already saw it in real time in the third quarter. Here we go again. He's doing it again. He's getting tight. He's getting away from his bread and butter. And so in big game situations, he reminds me a lot of Kyle Schottenheimer. Forget Andy Reid in Philadelphia. This is Kyle Schottenheimer all over again. He just gets tight in his own way, and he calls a conservative game. And Brian Balder, he joins us every week during the football season. He's done it the last 4 years. He said last week, it's going to come down to Spags and Shanahan. That's the matchup everybody needs to watch. And you know what? Spags was in his hip pocket once again for the second straight Super Bowl between these two teams. So I don't think he's overrated, but there is a conversation out here that I like to have, and people think I'm just a Shanahan hater. Who would you rather have, McVay or Shanahan? I've seen McVay thrive in these situations. See, there you go. And the fact that he's throwing everybody else under the bus and there's all these excuses, I don't know if it's going to happen for Shanahan in San Francisco. It feels like he may win a Super Bowl elsewhere.
And here's the other thing. Like, I could so easily agree with everything you just said, Bonta Hill, where 28-3, he's got to run the football more. Even that controversial play where Chris Jones batted the ball down at the line of scrimmage in the first Super Bowl. There was a thought you should have ran the ball there. In this Super Bowl, should have ran the ball. But here's the crazy part. The guys are actually open when they throw the ball, and this offensive line crumbled. Like, to see what the nose tackle for the Chiefs did, and he just threw Trent Williams on his ass in the third quarter. I couldn't believe that. And McDuffie unblocked. Jones must have been some sort of error. It's crazy to me how, they should have ran the ball more, but how that offensive line just got dominated in the Super Bowl.
Well, it's just scheming, right? Spags is going to blitz. They blitz Lamar Jackson relentlessly every other play, and that's what they do. And the secret's out on the 49ers. If you blitz them, force them and get them out of their timing by bumping the wide receivers. Like the Cleveland Browns earlier this season laid out the blueprint. We play sticky man coverage, and we're going to be physical, and we're going to disrupt the timing in the West Coast offense. And now what you're going to do? What's your counter? And Shanahan in these big games, just like the 2021 NFC Championship against the Rams, same thing. Eric Weddle playing in the box. Literally, Kansas City had like 10 guys within 8 yards of the line of scrimmage. They're daring Brock Purdy to throw it deep and beat him with the vertical passing game. And it just feels like Shanahan's vertical passing game is so outdated. It really is. There's no threat of a deep shot, no threat of somebody taking the top off the defense. So, yes, there are guys wide open, but that's by design because they're blitzing everywhere. And nobody knows where to pick it up at. It's like they're not even prepared for it. And they don't even get me the overtime. I mean, let's take the 2-minute warning, Zach. And you're right, McDuffie's scot-free on the blitz, right? Bats the ball down. You got to kick the field goal. Mahomes has another shot. Why not look at that situation as a 2-play sequence? Okay, I know Mahomes is on the sideline. There's 2 minutes left.
Run on third, then go.
Let's run the ball on third down, set up a 4th and short, get a first down, and ice the game. Same thing in overtime. That's got to be a 2-play sequence. 3rd and 4, run the ball, set up a 4th and short. But instead, you get 2 balls batted down to Chris Jones to disrupt the play in overtime. It's just bad scheming and bad execution. So, yes, the offensive line did break down. I just think it's bad scheming.
They lost this Super Bowl because of their offense. There's no other ways about it. The defense, when you hold Mahomes to 1 touchdown in regulation, it was set up because of the whole punt situation. You needed to distance yourself in the first half. They couldn't do it. And I know it's not just one moment, but it felt like yesterday that they scapegoated Steve Wilks, which is crazy because of how great his defense performed in the Super Bowl up until overtime. It's like Shanahan, he's pointing the finger at everybody else but himself. Oh, we could win big games. Oh, not getting the team prepared for overtime and not knowing the rules didn't impact it. And now Steve Wilks gets fired? Like, Shanahan has no accountability.
Well, we saw this coming midway through the season, Zach. So the Minnesota game happens, right? They lose to Cleveland 19-17, first loss of the year. Mind you, the defense gave up 68 points in the first 5 weeks of the season. Everybody was like, we're having a debate out here in the Bay Area. What unit is better, the offense or the defense? Because they were blowing everybody away. They lose to Cleveland 19-17, even though Shanahan's clock management in that game left something to be desired. 3 minutes left in that game. You throw 3 straight passes. 60 seconds, he lats off the clock. Cleveland gets a shot to kick a game with a field goal. It's Shanahan again, but Steve Wilks took the bullet for that one. Minnesota happened. And remember before the half where Jordan Addison caught that long touchdown because Steve Wilks ran a cover 0 blitz. Minnesota goes up 16-7. Shanahan undressed Wilks in front of the entire media. Yeah, I didn't like the call. It was a terrible call. Well, Shanahan, you're the head coach. You got the headset. How about you call a timeout and blow a dead? Say, no 0 blitz. So from that moment on, we knew Steve Wilks would be the scapegoat this year if anything went awry. And even that week after the Minnesota game, they played Cincinnati the next week, got torched. But nobody said anything about Brock Purdy throwing 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter of the Minnesota game or throwing 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter against Cincinnati. Actually, one was late in the third quarter, one was in the fourth quarter. Everybody blamed Steve Wilks. And Steve Wilks came out and said, I'm still learning the scheme. This is not my defense. I'm still learning the scheme. So we all knew in the Bay Area, now the national media is catching up to us, but we knew this was Shanahan's defense. He's the real defensive coordinator on this football team. He micromanages everything, including the defense. And so Steve Wilks is saying, I'm still learning the scheme midway through the year. It was like, wait, what? And by the way, This is unprecedented, Zach. It's wild, right? He couldn't bring any of his assistants over. He basically came here, had to learn a new scheme, and do it with Shanahan's defensive assistants, not his own assistants.
Who's an offensive
run his
guy
own
too.
defense.
It's
exactly.
wild.
It's wild. So we knew Steve Wilks would get the scapegoat. Like you said, you hold Mahomes to 3 points on the first 9 possessions of the football game. You hold him to 19 points in regulation. That is good enough to win the game. We all know out here in the Bay Area, it's on Purdy, it's on Shanahan, it's on the offense. It's all on them. The defense played their butts off in that football game.
I got 90 seconds left. I made the case earlier. We know Shanahan and Belichick are close. He's trying to get Belichick to be the DC. I think Belichick will think that's beneath him, and he won't do it. I saw Florio started to speculate Brandon Staley as their next DC. And the moment I heard that, I'm like, yep, that's probably who it's going to be. Who do you think will be the next DC?
I mean, Brandon Staley's a good name. I think they may go in-house. They got this guy Holland or Bullock or whatever. I don't even know. He's a DB coach. Look, I kind of want a scheme change, a 3-4 guy and some exotic blitzes because the wide 9 has been figured out. Our defense looks so predictable. But with that said, they were 3rd or 4th in the league in opponents' points per game. So I don't think the defense is – think about it. Travis Ware was an all-pro. Deommodore Lenoir is a player. We know Jair Brown, the rookie out of Penn State. We got a player there. Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner had career years. The defensive line didn't show up. And that starts with Nick Bosa. And I think Nick Bosa quietly went behind the backs of Steve Wilks. It's like, the defense, I'm not really feeling it. We weren't ready for the RPOs or the zone read that Mahomes ran in overtime late in the fourth quarter. Bosa, I don't want to hear it from you. You got $120 million guaranteed. You're playing conditioning. You're playing scheme. Yet I saw you off the field on the final possession of regulation with your hands on your hips. How do you take yourself out of the game in the Super Bowl? So I don't know who's going to be the DC, but be careful if you want to be the DC under Kyle Shanahan, because if anything goes wrong, you will be out of here and you will be scapegoated, no doubt.
Bonta Hill, always appreciate the time. Does a sensational job. Morning Drive at 95.7 The Game. Make sure you send my condolences to your co-host, Joe Shasky, because I know he wears his emotions on the sleeve. And also, check it on my guy, Deebo Samuel. Make sure Deebo's doing okay for me, all right?
Oh, hey, you know what? Shasky and I were both hurting. We were walking out of that stadium, Zach, was one of the more depressing walks.
But you're tougher. You're tougher than Joe.
I maybe a little bit, but I'm not going to lie. Every time I think about the Super Bowl, I get angry and angry as the days go by. And Deebo Samuel, 11 targets, 3 catches. Just not good enough, man. Just not good enough.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Bonta, always great to catch up with you. Thanks so much.
Anytime, Zach. Take care, buddy.
There you go. Bonta Hill joining us. We'll come on back. We got to do a rapid-fire Zach Gelb Show PSA. Update time first. Here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Rob Manfred has been baseball commissioner since 2015 and has an end date in sight for his tenure. The 65-year-old saying this will be his last term, that'll step down in January of 2029. The Bears are gearing up for free agency, releasing former Pro Bowl guard Cody Whitehair and safety Eddie Jackson, clearing over $21 million in cap space. LSU freshman running back Trey Holly is facing 3 felony charges, including second-degree attempted murder. He has been suspended indefinitely from the team. The basketball spotlight shines on Iowa City tonight, where Caitlin Clark tries to become the NCAA's all-time leading scorer for women. When Iowa hosts Michigan, she needs just 8 points to break Kelsey Plum's record of 3,527. The 22-year-old Iowa native has been one of college basketball's biggest sensations for quite a while and has had success in the first quarter, so you'd figure that she'll have that record early this evening. There are a trio of games in the NBA tonight before the All-Star break as the Bucks are in Memphis. The Warriors face the Jazz in Utah after seeing their 5-game winning streak end last night. And the Timberwolves, the top team in the West, will meet the Blazers in Portland. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rock your body. Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It is a Thursday. This week is flying on by. It does not feel like it's a Thursday. I thought it was like Wednesday or Tuesday, but it is Thursday. Guess what that means? Tomorrow's Friday, which is wonderful. I can't wait for Friday. 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow and a Friday. I'm going to be feeling pretty good. By the way, I watched the new Curb. First episode, Second episode, pretty good. Was a big fan of that. Someone reached out to me, a listener, and they informed me that after hearing our interview with Little Dicky, Dave at the Super Bowl, they binge watched in one weekend all 3 seasons of Dave. They said the interview was that good, and they actually said to me that Little Dicky reminds them of the modern day Larry David. That's what they kind of made the comparison, which I thought was pretty spot on. Because both of those shows, it's funny, but it also makes you like cringe at the same time as you see the funniness unfolding and like the moments unfolding.
I haven't seen Dave, but I feel like there's only so much cringe humor that my soul can handle before I have to like walk away. That's why I could never get into Curb.
Really?
The reason was like I would watch an episode and like for me, I like to binge watch, but like I couldn't binge Curb because it was so uncomfortable watching each episode that after each episode you have to like take a break and like emotionally cleanse yourself before you can watch another one. I can't just sit down and watch 2, 3, 4 in a row because you just feel so uncomfortable watching it.
Yeah, well, that's why you gotta maybe make yourself a cocktail while you watch it or some other performance-enhancing substance. So
but uncomfortable is uncomfortable. No matter what you are feeling, if you feel that uncomfortable and that like weird, I don't know, you just like, it was the same thing with Seinfeld, but it didn't matter with Seinfeld because back then I wasn't binging it. I would watch an episode 1 week and then, you have a full 7 days to kind of gather yourself and then boom.
All righty, it is Thursday. Let's get to a Zach Gelb Show. PSA.
It's a Thursday. What do you have to say? It's the weekly Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Who's with me? Let's go! Come on! Hey!
So I was just reading that Rob Manfred was asked today if this final 5-year term will be his last as Major League Baseball commissioner. Thank God the answer is yes. Too bad it can't happen any sooner. So his tenure as commissioner, or his disaster as commissioner, will end in early 2029. Does anyone give a rat's ass about Rob Manfred announcing he's going to retire in early 2029? This isn't like Coach K, a legend. This is Rob Manfred, or as my buddy Frank the Tank likes to say from Barstool Sports, Rob Manfraud. This dude has been a disgrace. This dude has been an awful, terrible commissioner, and I don't want any celebration or any retirement tour. Here's my PSA. When you're going to retire, tell me within the year that you're going to retire. Not, I'm retiring 5 years, 5 years from now. Just stop with this nonsense. I know he was asked the question, but you're basically begging people to sing your praises. And quite frankly, Rob, there's nothing to give you really credit for because you've been terrible. And I know that the commissioner, or I've been told from people close to the commissioner heard some of my rants during the pandemic, and he is not a big fan of your boy, Zach Gelb. So there's my PSA. Don't tell me you're retiring 5 years from now. Just tell me within a year when you're retiring. Rob Manfred. Yuck. I feel like I just cursed on the radio. That should be one of the words you can't say on the radio. Manfred. Ugh. Terrible commissioner. What do you got?
It actually reminds me of a South Park episode where they list all the different curses, and one of them is mikrob, which is like a Chinese dish of some sort. And so like that's not a curse, and they find that it actually is a curse word. It's very funny. My PSA kind of goes back to something I experienced during this radio row out in Vegas, and something I've experienced at many radio rows.
Yeah.
But this year was worse than others. Usually there's fans there or lower-level media types who they see you with an athlete or a star, and they want to like glob on, and they want to try to like steal that thunder away from you, or they want to like get their attention. Now, here's the thing. I understand if you're like at a restaurant and you see a star, and as long as they're not like face deep in their meal, you want to go talk to them, get a picture. You know, if they're sitting around hanging out, fine. Right? If you see someone on the street, go talk to them, fine. But there's a time and a place and a way to do it. If they're in the middle of a conversation, if they're on the phone, if they're eating
right off
their
the
food, if they're doing an interview with somebody else, don't walk up to them asking for a picture and try to stop them and talk to them.
I thought you were going to get upset that Josh Allen dapped up Drew Brees.
No. Athletes can talk to other athletes while they're doing.
I was going to say,
fine.
we
That's
encourage
cool.
that.
Yeah. I mean, when Emmitt Smith and Adrian Peterson were talking, that's cool. Yeah, that's fine. I'm down with that. I'm just talking about like fans or other people.
Gotcha.
Just like find the moment.
No, you're not wrong on that. All righty, Stu, take us home.
All right, so I am trying to get a Devils Winter Classic jersey that is not available anywhere that I've looked.
Yeah.
I finally found it
Poverty
on
franchise,
a certain...
that's why.
Well, I know. They didn't make as many as the Rangers did. I finally find it on a website that I will not name because I'm about to kind of trash them.
Okay.
They say it's there. I order it. And then 5 days later, I notice, it hasn't shipped yet. So I contact them.
The worst.
They say, sorry, we don't have it. Here's your refund. And here are points. The points equate to $3.33. So thank you for the extra $3.33 for my trouble. Unnamed company.
What can $3.33
nothing on their
buy
website?
You these days?
Absolutely nothing.
Doesn't even buy you a bottle of water
or a cup of coffee.
But they at least refunded you for what the jersey was.
They refunded me, yes,
and they gave you a $3.33 coupon, basically.
Yes,
they didn't even cover the taxes.
Yeah, seriously, you're right. Yeah.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Big thanks to Bonta Hill. Big thanks to Steve Spagnuolo, Spags, 4-time Super Bowl champion, for stopping by earlier in the show. We will be back tomorrow on a Friday. That's not a football Friday, but we'll probably talk a lot of football at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. This is depressing. Football's over. Man, life sucks. We're going to talk about the All-Star game. Woo-hoo-hoo. Going to be fun. Back tomorrow. Thanks so much, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
You're in a 5-minute break.